What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio. Welcome to Stat Diggers, where we go balls deep into the stats for the upcoming card. This week, we have a very good card, UFC 265. I'm really looking forward to it. We have 13 fights on the card, hoping all 13 stay on. But, we'll see what happens. So, before we get into it, if you guys can leave a like on the video, also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you have not yet, so do not miss out on all the other content throughout the week. And before we get started, going to do a quick recap of last night's shit show. I want to make it brief and short so we can move on to this card that is much, much better. So I'll start, though, kick it over to Uncle Weezy. So for me, it was a terrible night. It was a terrible night. I got my ass handed to me. Had some good reads, though. So I had Barberena wins inside the distance. He had like 20 million times chances to knock out Jason Witt. Like in the third round where he hurt Witt bad and Witt was, going down, grabbing his mouthpiece. Rocked and hurt bad. I thought the fight was going to be over shortly after, so missed on that. Had it plus 100. I had Garcia wins inside the distance, plus 160. I liked the line. Hindsight, probably a bad bet, but man, he was really close to finishing Chris Grutzmacher in that first round. Other than that, I did have the under 4.5 rounds in the main event. What the heck, Sean Strickland? I mean, he had so many opportunities to finish Hall. So, all the reads so far, I think they were there. I mean, hindsight, yes, they lost. They're not great bets, but the reads were definitely there. Barberena inside the distance almost hit. Garcia inside the distance almost hit. The under 4.5 in the main event. And then also had a half-unit shot on Ryan Benoit inside the distance, plus 330. He did drop Zaruk. Was close to finishing him, but I did cash in on Phil Rowe as an underdog. Start off the night good. That was plus 152. And I also had Melsik Bagdasarian wins by KO, half unit plus 325. So not a good night. I thought the reads were there. I wish a couple of them would have bounced my way, like the under in the main event, like Garcia inside the distance, Barb inside the distance. But it is what it is. Minus 2.85 units on the night. But it was a good month. You take a look back at July. I had a profitable month, so can't really complain about that. And the month as a whole was pretty good. I mean, not much complaints outside of last night was not great. And Kyler Phillips, but other than that, a pretty good July, and hopefully have a good August as well. So we're going to start off here for UFC 265. Uncle Weezy, how was your night last night? Did you enjoy the shit show mess of UFC Vegas 33?
Yeah, it was a total shit show, man, and I was so close to being the smartest guy on the block. I went into Friday with only one bet. It was Ronnie Lawrence money line bet for 1.5 units, and then I had 0.5 units on a Lawrence decision bet. So obviously that fight went by the wayside. And when I went to bet on Saturday night, I was thinking to myself, man, you got 0 units on this 1-800-gambler card, this complete shit show of a card. And I go, and you should just go in with 0 units. You'd be the fucking smartest guy on the block. These are all low-level fights, all garbage. All the best ones got knocked off the card. We were left with the scraps. And then I woke up and started watching some content, and boy, I got suckered in. I put 1.3 units on the Benoit money line, and I put 1.5 units on the under 4.5 in the main event. So yeah, finished down 2.8 units instead of finishing down 0 units and being the smartest guy on the block. So, but you know what, man? We got UFC 265 coming up on Saturday. We got all these people with us. We got the GOAT in here. We got Sun Tzu in here supporting the show already. My God, all these donos. Thank you, you guys. We really appreciate you guys supporting the show like this. It really means a lot. And we can't wait to get into all the stats for all 13 of these fights for UFC 265, man. I'm fired up to get into this card. I feel like we got over a hump last night, Brady. The MMA gods made us pay for being able to analyze the best sport in the world. We had to sit through a shit show of a card, but now we're over that. UFC 265 coming up. I'm ready to get it, man. I'm ready to get into the stats here.
100%, man. You got to have a short-term memory in this game because it's already the next day, and we're already, researched for the next card already. So, yeah, I can't wait. I do have no bets on this card yet, but there's a lot of spots that are sticking out. Before we get started, I do want to shout out that me, Uncle Weezy, are going to have a new DraftKings show, a DFS show on Tuesday. Every Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time as of now. The time might change in the future, but it's going to be a huge new show. It's going to be my usual DraftKings show right in that slot on Tuesday, but we're going to revamp it. We're bringing in some heavy hitters. Z's MMA will be on. I'm doing some DFS analysis, and also Luque from Sparring with Reality. We have a panel of absolute killers. So be sure to mark your calendars down starting this Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. I'm really looking forward to this DFS show. Are you, Uncle Weezy?
Absolutely, I am, man, because, I feel privileged to be working with you as well. I mean, you've been in this business way, way, way longer than I have. So for you bringing me along for this show, Stat Diggers, has been an honor for me. But now to be along with you and then Luke and Z's on this DraftKings show, it's just, I'm over the moon. I'm really happy to be a part of it. And I can't wait to bring in all the numbers for this DraftKings show, because I got a whole bunch of numbers that you don't see on this spreadsheet that's on your screen that are specifically just to do with DraftKings. Your Uncle Weezy's been real busy with his database, and I can't wait to bring these crazy stats that I have for this DraftKings show and to chop it up with you and Luke and Z every Tuesday night on Pub Sports Radio. Man, I'm fired up to do this. I can't wait to work with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait. What a panel. And not only like very intelligent guys, but really nice guys as well. Like Z and Luke are probably some of the nicest guys out there, you as well. So I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. And I'm assuming the people that are watching are going to absolutely love it. So before we get into it, I do want to shout out some donos in the chat. As always, we have the GOAT, Tajik Bey, $4.99. Appreciate that support, MMA community. Shout out to the GOAT, Tajik. Moving along, we have SD Crusader. What is up? SD went dog heavy last card and killed it. Yeah, if you went dog heavy last night, you destroyed it. Kamaka robbery prevented a huge parlay, though. Well, glad you didn't make it out alive, and glad you did cash on some dogs, because all the dogs hit last night. We have Don't Ask, Don't Tell, $5 donor. Appreciate that early week special. Let's get it. Thank you for hanging out. Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and thank you for the support. And then we have Sun Tzu. What is up, Sun Tzu, in the chat? Keep up the great work, guys. $24.99. Appreciate that a ton, Sun Tzu. Thank you for hanging out, and thank you for supporting. You are the man. One of the best DraftKings guys in the game. And that is about it. Appreciate you all hanging out in the chat. Shout out to Chris. We have Smooth Cat in here as well. Of course, Tajik, Sean as well. Jimmy the Drunk, Headley Lone. We have a bunch of people in the chat, man. Thank you all for hanging out and supporting on a Sunday Beach City. Robert, a bunch of people in here. So thank you guys for hanging out. I say we get into it, and I say we make some money on this card. This card is very good. I'm hoping it stays together, but I say we get into it here. So first fight of the night, we have, one second, let me get to, okay, here we go. Johnny Munhoz going against Jamie Simmons. We have Munhoz, who is 28 years old, 5'9", 71-inch reach. Jamie Simmons is 28 years old, 5'6", 70-inch reach. So Munhoz is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and also a 1-inch reach advantage as well. Taking a look at the last couple fights, so Johnny Munhoz made his UFC debut, I believe it was on a short notice, against Nate Maness. And if you remember that fight, I believe he was fighting up a weight class. So he's now going to be back at his regular weight class here. And then he lost that fight by decision. If you go back and watch that fight, I really thought Munhoz won. He controlled for the fight for about like 10 minutes. He was able to get 2 takedowns, did get a lot of takedowns stuffed, but again, short notice, up a weight class. I thought he made a really good account for himself. He was able to outstrike Maness in every single round in terms of the significant strikes. And Maness was held against the cage for like 10 minutes, but Maness was very active on the cage. So I think the judges scored that for him. But regardless, I did think Munhoz did win that fight. Also wanted to mention that he kicked Maness in the balls like 5 times and ended up taking a point. But even with that point deduction, he still would have lost the fight. But I thought it was a pretty good, UFC debut for Munhoz. I thought that it was a pretty good fight. I thought he fought well. As far as Jamie Simmons, they brought him in to get killed by Giga Chikadze. They wanted to give Giga Chikadze a first-round knockout, and that's just what happened. Jamie Simmons got first-round knockout loss to Giga Chikadze. Jamie Simmons is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, and Munhoz is 4-1 in his last 5 fights as well. So, Uncle Weezy, what do you have for us here?
Yeah, this is going to be a good one, man. I'm really leaning Munhoz quite a bit here, and there's a lot to like about him. He's got about a 3-inch height advantage here, 5'9" versus 5'6", 1-inch reach advantage. If we look at the experience numbers, very similar. Munhoz 11 fights, Simmons 10, but we got about 40 more minutes of cage time from Munhoz and about another year in the game as a pro for Munhoz. We look at these guys, both of them are pretty good finishers. Munhoz 10 pro wins, 8 of them inside the distance, 6 by submission, 2 by knockout. And for Simmons, he's got 7 pro wins, 1 by submission and 4 by knockout. So, he's finished 5 of his 7 wins inside the distance. Munhoz has finished 8 of his 10 wins inside the distance. And Simmons has actually been finished in all 3 of his professional losses, twice by knockout, once by sub. So we see that, in those 10 Jamie Simmons fights, 8 of them have finished inside the distance, 100% of the losses. So that's pretty cool if you're looking at an inside the distance bet here. Those are the kind of fighters we like to see those inside the distance bets on, because if they're losing inside the distance all the time, it's probably going to happen again. And then we got, let's see, for the striking statistics, we got not much meat on the bone here. We got 1 UFC fight for either of these guys. So, 62% in Munhoz's fight, 50% in Simmons. Not really much meat on the bone there. Now, Munhoz really tried to grapple with Manis. He had 16 takedown attempts in that fight, only got 2 of them. But he did control Manis 65% of that fight and only gave up about 10% control time. While for Simmons, he's got 19% control time, only 3% control time against, but he's only been in the UFC cage for 4 minutes. So we don't have much on the strength of schedule stats here either. So let's just go into the kind of like the notes here, and I'll give you the quick breakdown here. The Munhoz advantages. We got a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage for Munhoz. About 40 more minutes of professional cage time, 2 more years as a pro, 80% finish rate, and Simmons has been finished in all 3 of his pro losses. And he's a very active wrestler and grappler due to his incredibly slick on the ground. And since Jamie Simmons is really more of a wrestler first, he might be kind of just going right into what Munhoz does best. And Simmons' advantages, he's got a 71% finish rate as a pro, 57% by knockout, 14% by sub. He's definitely a killer be killed fighter. 4.8 minutes average fight time for Simmons in 10 pro fights. So, on average, he doesn't even make it out of the first round. And he's a very solid wrestler. But his striking is very basic, very basic. He's kind of slow. He throws all of his force into all of his punches. If you see what Simmons has done well as a pro, it's been taking people down and ground and pounding them out. He's got a lot of power on the ground, but Munhoz is really, really good on the ground, and I don't think Simmons is going to want to be there with him. So when I look at this, fight, I don't see a lot of paths here for Simmons to win this fight. I think a Munhoz inside the distance is a really good possibility here. And I think the line, is kind of reflecting that in terms of what Vegas is thinking here. Yeah, I really like Munhoz. I think inside the distance is the way to go. Why don't you break down what you got for us on this one, man?
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the first bet of my night. I really like Munhoz. I mean, he's a black belt in BJJ, a phenomenal grappler. Like, my jaw dropped with some of the grappling I saw from this guy. Like, he went from an armbar to a triangle to an armbar to a finish in a matter of like 5 seconds. Like, this guy is a phenom on the mat. I think he's going to have a massive, massive grappling advantage against Jamie Simmons, who solid grappler himself, more of a really good wrestler, but he is a blue belt in BJJ. I think Munhoz is going to have such a big advantage on the mat here. And you take a look at Jamie Simmons, that's typically where he wants to fight, down on the mat. Solid wrestler. So I like the game of Munhoz. I mean, he goes for it. He knows what he's good at, and that's the grappling. And like you said, in his first UFC fight, he went for, what you said, like 12, 16 takedowns, something like that?
16.
Like, see, I love to see that. I love when guys fight to their strengths, and that's what he does. The striking, honestly, I probably favor Munhoz there as well. I mean, outside of like a Jamie Simmons knockout, which you take a look at Jamie Simmons and go back and look at some of his fights, his finishes are all like ground and pounds for the most part. He did knock out some bums standing, but, they're bums. I like Johnny Munhoz quite a bit. I like every aspect of him in this fight. He's going to be the bigger fighter by 3 inches of height. He's going to have the reach advantage as well. And I think he has Jamie Simmons beat everywhere. So this is probably going to be my first bet of the night. I will take a look at the odds here, and we have Johnny Munhoz at minus 245. He opened up minus 150 for some reason. That line did not last long at all. And we have Jamie Simmons, who is plus 210. So they do not have the fight doesn't go to decision line for this fight. They actually have it for every other fight but this fight. So I'm thinking about either doing a Munhoz straight. I see him at minus 230 on FanDuel. I like that. I see him on minus 225 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I like that quite a bit as well. Munhoz inside the distance. You mentioned it. Jamie Simmons has lost inside the distance in all 3 of his fights, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission as well. I think, a ground and pound or a submission is definitely likely here. Or even just like the under 2.5 or like the fight doesn't go. I'm assuming we might get it at plus money. I'm hoping. So, man, Uncle Weezy, there's a ton of spots that are sticking out. But for me, I'm going to be, pretty highly exposed to this first fight of the night.
Yeah, and why not? If you do like Munhoz, and the inside the distance bet is a great bet because we're seeing 8 out of Munhoz's 10 wins coming inside the distance and 3 of Simmons' 3 losses coming inside the distance. So in terms of 10 wins and 3 losses, you got 11 of those 13 have finished inside the distance. So that would probably be the best way to attack this one. I like Munhoz inside the distance here. I think he's got a lot of different paths to victory, but his ground game is just going to be way better than Jamie.
I think he's going to give Simmons a lot of problems, to say the least, on the mat. So we do have Dono. Before we move on, Jimmy the Drunk says, I'm a Sun Tzu, but I'm poor. Call me Bumsu. Appreciate the Dono, Jimmy, and thank you for hanging out as always. Okay, getting into the next fight, we have, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to pull up the 1-800-GAMBLER real quick. There she is. Okay. We have Toriel Leonardo going against Melissa Gatto. We have Leonardo, who is 31 years old, 5'5", 64-inch reach. Gatto, she is 25 years old, 5'5". Not sure on her reach there. Taking a look at the last couple fights, Gatto is going to be making her UFC debut. Prior to that, she submitted Carol Rosa in a fight where she was getting dominated the entire fight up until she found a sub. And this fight was very interesting, Uncle Weezy. I went back and watched this City Rocha fight with her, and she clearly loses every single round, and it's not even close. Like, she lost every single second of that fight, and it got called a draw for some reason. I don't know if, I don't know how that was a draw, but I really think she lost that fight. Don't really understand that, but she is undefeated, 2 draws as well. But yeah, she really should have a loss. As far as Toriel Leonardo, she went and made her UFC debut against Menefield, and it was like a head kick that hurt her, and then she followed up with punches. No shame in that, losing to Menefield. Prior to that, on the Contender Series, she did beat Chelsea Hackett. Solid win there. I believe she was a dog in that fight. So, yeah, Uncle Weezy, the 1-800-GAMBLER is up, and you can kind of tell us why.
Yeah, 1-800-GAMBLER is there for a very good reason. The very first of these reasons is that Melissa Gatto has not fought in 3 years, dude. 3 years. Her last one was over Carol Rosa 3 years ago. It was 2018. That's crazy. That's been that long since she's fought. My understanding is that she tested positive for some kind of a banned substance and then had some visa issues. So we've seen, I think, 4 fights canceled prior to her getting this fight with Leonardo here. So we don't have a lot of information on Melissa Gatto. Like you mentioned, she's got 2 draws on her record. She's 6-0-2. And you mentioned that Ciryl Gane, fight was, you don't even know how that was a draw. And in the Rosa fight, she was taken down. Melissa Gatto was 2 times very easily and held there. But she did show an active guard from her back and did use a leg lock to sweep and get up once. So she is active from her back, and she will throw up submissions. And you don't really want to be in her guard. She is active there, but Toriel Leonardo is somebody who's going to be going after takedowns, and if she can stay safe on top, it doesn't look like she's going to have a problem getting Gatto to the mat because she just doesn't have great takedown defense. If we look at the experience numbers here, we see that Gatto is much younger. She's 25 while Leonardo's 31. But it's Leonardo with the experience advantage. 3 more pro fights, about 20 or about 15 more minutes in the cage. But strangely enough, Gatto has a 4.5-year career, while for Toriel Leonardo, it's only a 3-year career. So what's important to note here is that in 3 years, Toriel Leonardo has had 11 fights, which basically means in the last 3 years, Toriel Leonardo has fought 11 times. And Melissa Gatto's fought once.
Wow.
11 fights in the last 3 years for Leonardo, 1 fight in the last 3 years for Melissa Gatto. Now, that's got to be a huge advantage. Any way you look at that, it's nice to know that, Melissa Gatto is well rested, but she's only 25 years old. I didn't need rest when I was 25 years old. So she has not been active. She has not been fighting. There was a banned substance that she, tested positive for. So there's a lot of unknowns here. Gatto finished 4 of her 6 wins by submission. So she is clearly a very good grappler, very active with her submission attempts. Victoria Leonardo has a 63% finish rate as a pro, 50% by sub, 4 wins by sub, and 1 win by knockout. And Victoria Leonardo has been finished in all of her pro losses. So these guys share 3 losses between Leonardo and Gatto. All 3 of those losses have been inside the distance. Very interesting. We don't have any striking stats on Melissa Gatto. We don't really have much to show here for Leonardo. What is important is that in Leonardo's 2 UFC fights, 1 Contender Series fight and then 1 UFC fight against Montefiore, she has attempted 8 takedowns in 2 fights. She is a very willing grappler, 37.5% takedown accuracy, 2.39 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she's outcontrolled her opponents 28% to 10%. So, this kind of looks like, I don't know what this is going to look like on the feet. Melissa Gatto's striking didn't look terrible. Victoria Leonardo's she's not known for her striking either. What I guess the only way that I can think about how to handicap this fight is if it does go to the ground, can Leonardo stay safe on top? And she has, one of her 3 losses is by submission. So she has lost, by submission once. So, there is a path to victory there for Gatto to get a submission, but there's also a path to victory if Gatto can't get that submission, for Leonardo to use her wrestling, use her top game, accrue a bunch of control time over 3 rounds and win a decision here. But yeah, man, 3 years, 12 fights, and 11 of them are for Leonardo. So she's just by far the busier mixed martial artist. I'd have a really hard time getting to a bet on Melissa Gatto here, man. I don't know about you. I mean, the only thing you're going to have a hard time doing is getting out of the straitjacket if I catch you betting on this, because I will send the orderlies to your house. I got them on speed dial. The folks over at 1-800-GAMBLER know me.
Dude, I'm not betting on this fight. If we take a look at the line, this kind of surprises me. I mean, Gatto opened up as a -110 slight pick him now as a -125 favorite, and Leonardo is a +105 dog. You mentioned a lot of great points. The inactivity, the layoff is very concerning. You mentioned that Leonardo is going to have 11 fights compared to the 1. I think that does favor Leonardo quite a bit, but Gatto's young. We haven't seen her in a while. She could be making a ton of improvements. Like who knows? Who knows about this fight? I mean, Leonardo is somebody I'm going to definitely fade in the future. I swear, I watched a good 3 or 4 fights of her, and every single fight, she gets head kicked at least 3-4 times. And that's why I was really heavy on Montefiore in her fight, but not going to really worry about that here. Gatto didn't see much of her striking really at all. It looked okay, but I probably got to favor Leonardo there. And like you mentioned, if Leonardo can take down Gatto, Gatto has been stuck on her back. I've seen her stuck on her back for a long time. Even in that Rocha fight we were talking about, she was stuck on her back for literally almost 15 minutes, and she still got a draw there. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like an R-bar from guard situation to me, but if not, I say Leonardo probably does win. A little bit better striking, top control, stay out of the subs. But if there is going to be an arm bar from guard in this fight, it's going to be on the Gatto side. But yeah, I'll take Leonardo as a slight dog pick, but you cannot pay me to bet this fight. As far as the fight doesn't go and the fight goes, we have the fight doesn't go sitting at -165 for the fight doesn't go to decision, and +125 for the fight goes to decision. So they're kind of thinking that Gatto gets a sub here.
100% of these ladies' combined losses coming inside the distance, but you also have, 4 of Gatto's 8 fights have went the distance. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And Leonardo has only finished 5 of her 8 wins inside the distance. So yeah, man, dude, I'm not touching this. It feels like an armbar from guard situation here, and there's really not a lot of angles here. I just don't know enough about Melissa Gatto. But, she's 25 years old. Like you said, I mean, who knows how many improvements she could have made, and she's already got a win over Karol Rosa. So, yeah, dude, 1-800-GAMBLER, dude. I'm not touching it. You shouldn't either.
Yeah, I agree. Even on the prop bets, I'm not betting it. Gonna take off this 100-GAMBLER, and then let's see what else we got here. All right, so we have 135 in here. If you all can hit the like, that'd be much appreciated. Let's get those likes up. Let's try to get to at least 100 by the time we get out of here. You guys have been killing the likes as of late, and me, Uncle Weezy, and Pub Sports Radio really do appreciate all the likes and all the support. So getting into a fight that we were supposed to see a couple weeks ago, a fight where I did have a bet on Miles Johns at -170. That bet has since then been voided, and now we see him as like a -210 favorite, of course. So don't know if I'll get to the betting window here again with Johns unless the line like really comes down, but it looks like they did price it about appropriately in my opinion here. So Miles Johns, 27 years old. He has 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. Going against Anderson Dos Santos, who is he just turned 36 years old. He is 5'5" with a 70-inch reach. As far as the last couple of fights, we have Miles Johns, a split decision win over Adrian Yanez. A very, very good win there. A decision win against Richie Santiago. A split decision win over Cole Smith. Got knocked out by Mario Batista. And then a knockout win over Kevin Natividad. As far as Anderson Dos Santos, had a knockout win over Wanderlei Jr., Alejandro Catano by decision, lost to Dan Narimani by decision as well, and then lost to Andre Yule by decision, and then just submitted Martin Day as well. So, yeah, I kind of have a lot of stuff to say about this fight. It kind of sucks that I did lose that -170, but I'm kind of hoping that the line does go down a little bit throughout the week, but it's currently sitting here at like -210, Weezy.
Yeah, this is a good fight, man. And we've already went over this one, so I'm just going to go to my notes here and kind of give you the condensed version, and then I'll hand it off to you, man. So we got, with Miles Johns is 9 years younger than Anderson Dos Santos. And Anderson Dos Santos, 35, 36-year-old bantamweight, that is an old bantamweight. So huge advantage there for Johns being the much younger, fresher fighter. And we got a former state champion wrestler here in Miles Johns and college wrestling experience. And he's got an 87.5% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. So we know that Dos Santos is a plus grappler with a lot of submissions on his record. So having that wrestling experience in your back pocket, it's going to be huge for Johns. So if he feels like he's much better on the feet here, there's a really good chance that he'll be able to keep it there. And then if we look at Johns' striking numbers thus far in the UFC, very impressive. He's landing 3.33 significant strikes a minute, but only absorbing 2.42. He's landing a knockdown on over 1.2% of his total significant strikes landed. And he's got a 68.25% striking defense. And then on top of that, when you put that 68.25% striking defense together with the fact that Anderson Dos Santos couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, that dude has got a 28% striking accuracy? I mean, that is absolutely terrible. So not only is Johns gifted defensively on the feet, but Dos Santos he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So as long as this fight stays standing, Johns should have a huge advantage. You're talking about pre-UFC wins for Miles Johns. He got wins over Adrian Yanez, Levi Moles, Kyle Machado. I mean, those are some damn good pre-UFC wins. Those are the Cadillacs of the regional scene wins that you can get. And then he should be able to keep the fight where he wants it. We talked about the great takedown defense, the great defensive wrestling, and the huge advantages that he has on the feet. For Dos Santos, we've got a big experience advantage. 17 more pro fights, 70 more minutes of cage time, and almost 3 more years as a professional. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage here. He's got 81% of his pro wins are by finish, so he's a much better finisher than Miles Johns. 57% coming by sub, 24% by knockouts. The guy's really slick on the ground, got a great submission game. And he's going to throw more volume. But, when you're only striking at a 28% accuracy, you better throw a lot of volume. But he is throwing 9.31 significant strikes per minute versus Johns, who's throwing about 7. So at least he'll be maybe a little bit busier in the eyes of the judges. And he's an active wrestler, he's Dos Santos. He's committing to the grappling, going for 5.33 takedown attempts per fight. So even though Johns has showed really good takedown defense, I think that Dos Santos will continue to go to the wrestling until he gets it where he wants it, which is on the ground. But then again, when you're 35, 36 years old in this division, you might tire out real quick if you're unsuccessful with your wrestling, and that could lead to a late finish by Johns. So, yeah, I'm definitely leaning Johns here. I see why the line is where it's at. What do you got for us on this one?
Yeah, I like John. I'm just kind of upset about losing that -170, to be honest. But maybe it will go down because I remember on Fight Week a couple weeks ago, it went down to like -156, something like that. So the plan for me is just kind of wait it out. But yeah, I'm with you. I do like Johns for all the reasons you mentioned. Anderson Dos Santos, a 36-year-old bantamweight. Anderson Dos Santos, a 28% striking accuracy. So yes, he's going to go after it. He's going to throw hard. He's dangerous. I will say that he's very dangerous. But Miles Johns, a wrestling background, state champion wrestler, believe he did go to college for wrestling as well. Very good takedown defense at 87%. Anderson Dos Santos, if he can get it down to the mat, yes, he'll have success. It's just I don't think he has the best wrestling to get it there. And I think John's just pieces up on the feet for 3 rounds. Maybe mixing the takedowns. Like, I'm not sure. Like, will Miles Johns go for takedowns? I think he can get them. It's just he's got to stay very safe on top. Anderson Dos Santos is very dangerous on the mat. So, yeah, I like Miles Johns here. I think he does win the fight. Anderson Dos Santos, a negative 2.14 significant strike differential and a 55% striking defense, whereas you have Miles Johns with a positive 0.91 and a 68% striking defense. So, yeah, I like Miles Johns here quite a bit. We will take a look at the line. We have Miles Johns opening up minus 200, currently minus 210. And we have Anderson Dos Santos opening up plus 170, currently plus 180. So it looks like the early trend is money coming in on Johns. I do see Johns minus 188 on FanDuel. Not horrible, but for me, I'm going to sit back and see where this line goes. We have the fight doesn't go to decision sitting at plus 135, and the fight goes to decision at minus 175. Don't really hate the under. Anderson Dos Santos has a lot of finishes on his record, and he has been finished quite a few times. But for me, I'm going to kind of sit back and see where that Johns line goes.
Yeah, check it out. For the fight doesn't go to decision for plus money, man, that's not bad because let's add up Dos Santos's 8 losses and John's 1 loss. So that's 9 combined losses. 6 of those 9 losses have been inside the distance. That's 2/3 probability. And you're getting plus money for something that should maybe be around minus 200. So I'm going to write that down. That there seems to be some value on that Johns Dos Santos fight doesn't go to decision line. I'm going to mark that one down.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder what they're going to open up the under at. I think under 2.5, maybe plus 150, plus 160. I'm going to keep a close eye on that as well, Weezy. So we will get to the next fight of the night. And we have a pretty solid fight here. So this is not one that I taped. There were 2 fights that I was not able to get to today. There's only so many hours in the day. I woke up at like 10 o'clock this morning. I've been researching all day. Was not able to get to this one, but Uncle Weezy does have some good notes on it, and I will tell you guys my initial leans as well. But we have a very solid fight. Vince Morales going against Draco Rodriguez. We have Morales, who is 30 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach, going against Draco Rodriguez, 25 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach. Taking a look at their last couple fights, Vince Morales lost by decision against Song Yadong, lost by submission against Domingo Pilarte. He beat Ayman Zahabi by decision. He lost to Benito Lopez by decision, and then he just lost by a leg TKO knockout against Chris Gutierrez. And then as far as Drake Rodriguez, 3-2 in his last 2 fights, did lose to Tony Gravely by knockout, beat Shea Moffett by submission, beat Fard Muhammad by decision as well. Beat Mana Martinez by submission, and then just got knocked out by Ayman Zahabi, which is, not a good look. So, Uncle Weezy, what do you have for us in this fight here?
Yeah, an interesting one, man. We got a prospect in Rodriguez kind of fighting a guy in Morales who's really got to be at that point where it's, win or go home for him. I mean, he's got a 1-4 UFC record at this point. So if he gets one more loss, I think he's going to be done. Rodriguez is 25, Morales is 30. So Rodriguez, the younger fighter, but obviously Morales, the more experienced fighter. About 50 more minutes in the cage, about 5 more pro fights, about a little more than 2 more years as a pro. Morales has got 5 UFC fights while Draco only has 2. If we look at the finish rates for these guys, both of these guys are really good finishers. Morales, 9 wins. 2 of them by submission, 5 of them by knockout. So 7 of his 9 wins coming inside the distance. And for Draco, it's a 57% sub rate. So he's gotten 4 of his 7 wins have been by submission, and 2 of them have been by knockout. So we're talking about, 6 out of his 7 wins have come inside the distance. So we're talking 13 out of these 16 wins by these guys have come inside the distance. That's like about an 85% finish rate in their combined wins. And then if we look at the losses, Draco 2, Morales 5. If we combine those 7 losses, 5 of them have come inside the distance. So right away, when we're looking at these numbers, we're looking at a really good shot of finishing inside the distance for this fight. And then if we look at the pro careers, talking average fight time, 8.29 for Morales, 6.56 for Draco. So, yeah, definitely a good chance of this one finishing inside the distance. The striking stats for Morales, we got a little more of a sample size there, so there's a little more to look into. 4.22 landed, 10.47 offered, 40.34% striking accuracy, about 0.75% of his strikes are resulting in a knockdown. So a little bit of power there from Morales, showing definitely some nice power in his hands. We see that Draco has got a little bit of a problem here on the striking defense side. He's been blocking punches with his face. 26.32% striking defense for Draco Rodriguez. Now, we got to keep in mind it's a very small sample size, but he's only had 19 strikes attempted against him, and 14 of them have landed. So he's got to learn some head movement there. But and Morales is pretty sharp with his hands. So Morales, what's interesting about Morales is, in a 1-win and 4-loss UFC record, the guy is actually landing more strikes than he's absorbing. So even though he's getting beat, he's showing that his striking skills are UFC level, because he's outlanding his opponents, he's out throwing his opponents, showing over 50% striking defense, around 53, so not bad. He has been knocked down, probably knocked down twice in 255 strikes landed against him. So that's about 0.5 knockdowns against. But then if we look at Draco, he's been knocked down on 7% of the strikes landed against him, 1 time and 14 strikes landed. So both of these guys have been knocked down. But it just shows that Morales is the cleaner striker, the crisper striker, and the much more efficient striker by a mile than Draco. But Draco here is really going to be the much more active grappler. We know that this guy has got 57% of his pro wins are by submission. So we know that he likes to go after that. And 2 of Morales' 5 losses have been by submission. So, I'm kind of seeing the path for Rodriguez to clearly be on the ground, because Morales is a really good boxer. And since Draco has shown really poor striking defense thus far, although it be in a small sample size, I think that this is a pretty clear striker versus grappler matchup. Rodriguez has gotten the only takedown he's attempted. And Vince Morales has been very successful keeping the fight standing thus far in the UFC. If we see, he's got less than 1% control time, but he's given up less than 6% control time, which means over 93% of his UFC fights have taken place in the center of the cage at striking distance. That's where Morales wants it. And even though he's shown a pretty lousy takedown defense, he's only successfully defended 5 of 9 takedowns against in these 5 fights, but he's only been controlled 5.68% of the time. So he's actually getting controlled less than a minute per takedown against. So even though he hasn't been great with his takedown defense, he's shown an excellent get-up game. So, it's going to be challenging for not only for Draco to take this guy down. It might be a little bit easier for him to take him down. What's going to be more difficult is for him to keep him down. But if he can do that, there's a path to victory here. So, yeah, I see this kind of shaping up as a striker versus grappler. Morales has fought the tougher brand of competition over his career. Here, let me just go to my notes here, and I'll break it down with what I have here. For the advantages for Morales, I've got a 1-inch reach advantage, no big deal there. We got 5 more pro fights, over 50 more minutes of cage time, and 2 more years as a pro. And over 50 more minutes of cage time at the UFC level, of course. So Morales definitely has a little bit of a reach advantage. He's got a lot of an experience advantage. He's got a 78% finish rate as a pro, 22% by sub, 56% by knockout. So he's definitely got some heavy hands. He's a very good boxer, throwing a lot of volume, 10.5 significant strike attempts per minute, and he lands more than he absorbs despite being 1-4 in the UFC. And Draco blocks punches with his face. He's only got a 26% striking defense. So if this fight stays on the feet, like 93% of Morales' fights have stayed on the feet thus far, and Draco continues to block punches with his face, there's a very clear path to victory on the feet for Morales. Now, if we look at, and he's also got decent power, does Morales. 2 UFC knockdowns in 5 fights. He's got bad takedown defense, but a good get-up game. We talked about that. He's only been controlled for 3.5 minutes of UFC cage time, despite the fact that he's been taken down 4 times. So less than a minute per takedown. And the common opponent between these 2 guys is Ayman Zahabi. Morales beat him, and Draco lost to him. So the MMA math actually favors Morales as well. The advantages for Rodriguez is he's 5 years younger. He's an inch taller. He's got an 86% finish rate as a pro, and over half of those are by sub and 29% by knockout. And he's got 100% takedown accuracy, but it's only in 1 takedown attempt. But he's averaging 2.75 takedowns per 15 minutes. So if he can continue to go to that grappling, there's a path for Rodriguez to take this fight down and get a submission over Morales, which 2 of his 5 losses for Morales have come by submission. So I'm looking at it as a striker versus grappler. I'm looking at the under or the fight doesn't go to decision as a really good bet because of these guys' combined finish rates in their wins and when they're getting finished when they lose. So yeah, striker versus grappler. I think I'm giving the edge to Morales. I think he's fought the better competition. I think he's got a lot of things kind of shaping up for him. But if Rodriguez is successful in getting this fight to the ground at least a couple of different times, I think he's got a great chance to win it. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, I mean, what you described sounds like a pretty close fight on paper for sure. I can't wait to tape this one. I got to see how good Rodriguez is at getting the takedowns. I want to see some of Morales' ground game and his get-up game as well. But yeah, you brought up a good point. Only has been controlled 5.68% of the time. That's pretty good, especially for getting taken down 4 times as well. But what stuck out to me the most was going to be the violent side of things. You take a look at the finish rates between the two. 86% finish rate for Rodriguez, finishing 57% of his fights by submission. As far as Morales, a 78% finish rate, finishing 56% of his wins by knockout. And you see that Rodriguez has been knocked out 2 times. He's been finished in both of his losses. Morales has been finished in 3 out of his 5 losses, 2 coming by submission, 1 coming by knockout. So I can see it as maybe Morales is able to stuff the takedowns or able to work his way back up and maybe be able to find a knockout. Or if Rodriguez is able to get the fight down to the mat, maybe he can find a submission. So I'm kind of thinking violence first look. I do got to tape it, but we'll take a look at the line here. We have Morales opening up as a minus 180 favorite, actually, and he's now down to minus 103. And we have Rodriguez opening up a plus 155 dog, and he's currently minus 117. As far as the fight goes and fight doesn't go, we have the fight goes to decision at minus 165, and the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 125. I'm assuming the over-under is going to be set at 2.5, and the under probably at like plus 150, plus 155 around there. So, yeah, Uncle Weezy, I'm kind of looking under first look. And for me, first look, I'm also leaning to the Morales side myself. We see Morales at plus 100 on DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 116 on FanDuel Sportsbook. And I think that line looks like it's closing up pretty fastly here.
Yeah, it is. The one thing I don't like about Morales is he is a very good boxer, but that seems to be he is kind of one-dimensional, isn't he? I mean, I know that he's got a good get-up game and he does have some kind of a wrestling background, but he keeps the wrestling in his back pocket and just tries to work with those hands. And the problem with that is that these boxers are so heavy on their lead leg. Then you see, like in Justin Ledette's last fight, he's like a pure boxer. You saw his leg just get fucking chewed up, and he lost because of that. Ike Villanueva against Marcin the Bum Prachnio. I mean, he got his lead leg chewed up because he's just using his hands. And this could be the same situation. If Draco goes to those low leg kicks and chews up Vince Morales' leg exactly like Chris Gutierrez did in their last fight, it's going to be very difficult for Vince to defend against that. So I would recommend that anybody that tapes this fight, watch Draco Rodriguez and see if he goes for low leg kicks. I haven't had time to tape it either. But if he's going for low leg kicks a lot, that could be a good recipe for success for him. And it could potentially allow him to get to his wrestling and to his submission game, which is where I think he's going to have the most success. But if he doesn't do that, he's going to be clearly outclassed here probably on the feet. So I need to find out more about Draco's striking. But I don't like these one-dimensional boxers. But all that being said, there's a lot of advantages, the ones that I just talked about, that are lining up on the Morales side here. So it's a very interesting fight. But, man, if that fight doesn't go to decision as plus money, I think that's a great potential violence bet here in this fight. This is a good fight doesn't go to decision bet, in my opinion, here, because we're talking about the 7 combined losses, that 5 of them have come inside the distance. That's way more than half. And if you're getting more than half, you're getting an edge whenever you're getting plus money on the fight doesn't go to decision. So, yeah, that's where I'm leaning here.
Yeah, I like it for sure. So I'm gonna tape this one as soon as I get off here. Probably, I think there's a bunch of betting opportunities for this fight. So, getting to the next fight here, we have Manel Kape going against Odie Osborne. We have Kape is 27 years old, 5'5", 68-inch reach, going against Osborne, who is 29 years old, 5'7", and a 73-inch reach as well. So Osborne's going to be 2 years older, have a 2-inch height advantage, and have a 5-inch reach advantage as well. Taking a look at their last couple fights, we had Kape make his UFC debut against Alexander Pantoja, a loss by decision there, and then lost by a split decision against Mateus Nicolau, and a lot of people thought that he won that fight. I personally thought he lost. But I actually bet against Manel Kape in both of those fights. And maybe we'll see if I bet against him here. But as far as Odie Osborne, he made his UFC debut against Brian Kelleher, got submitted, and then knocked out Jerome Rivera. One thing I do want to say is, man, Odie Osborne is taking probably one of the biggest steps up in competition in UFC history, going from Jerome Rivera, who has since then been cut, to Manel Kape, who's actually a really good fighter. I know people are crapping on this guy this week. They're going to crap on him, low volume, all this, but he's a good fighter. You take a look at what he's done outside of the UFC, and he's fighting really good competition. He's looking really good, and he comes in here against an absolute killer against Alexander Pantoja. He loses, and then he loses to a great fighter, Nicolau, as well, and I think people are starting to really count him out after losing to some really good competition. So, I mean, it's a good matchup. I think this is one of the better fights on the card. And what do you have for us on this one, Uncle Weezy?
I'm fired up for this one, man. Odie Osborne has been really fun to watch thus far, and Manel Kape has come in, and I mean, you want to talk about how high of a regard the UFC has held Kape in. I mean, his first fight was against Pantoja, and then the second fight was against Nicolau. And I mean, if I go to the advanced stats here, I mean, the combined record of those two guys is really good in the UFC. So we're talking about a guy here in Kape that has had, a really rough welcome to the UFC here. Let me just get the records of these guys that he's fought thus far, because, there's levels to this shit. And you were just talking about it, how, we got Kape, 4-1 Mateus Nicolau is, and 7-3 Pantoja. So these guys have had a combined record of 11-4, while Odie Osborne has fought guys that, if you add up their records, it's 7-10. So yeah, I mean, this is, like you said, this is a very big step up in competition, and everybody does need to know that, because Osborne has looked really good, but he's stepping up here to Kape. But there are some advantages for Osborne. First of all, this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. Very interesting stylistically, because usually these guys are used to fighting orthodox fighters, and their strong hands are opened up. Whoever probably has more power in their non-jab hand is going to have a little bit of an edge on the feet here. In their jab hand, because this will be southpaw versus southpaw. We got Manel Kape with 8 more fights than Odie Osborne, about 50 more minutes in the cage, and about 1 more year as a pro. So Kape's easily the more experienced mixed martial artist, while we got Odie Osborne having a little bit of an advantage in the measurables, as he's 2 inches taller and has a pretty big 5-inch reach advantage. If we look at the finish stats here, spectacular on both parts. Manel Kape, 93% finish rate as a pro. He's finished 14 out of his 15 pro wins. While for Odie Osborne, he's finished 8 out of his 9 pro wins. So if we add up the 24 pro wins between these guys, we've got 21 of them have finished inside the distance. It's right around 87, 88%. So both of these guys are prolific finishers. And then we see that Manel Kape has lost 6 fights. 2 of them have been finished inside the distance, while Odie Osborne's 3 losses, 2 of them have been finished inside the distance. 9 combined losses, 4 of them coming inside the distance. So this would be, if you were getting plus money on the fight doesn't go to decision here, that would be something that I would be taking a look at. We don't have a lot of fights here. Only 2 for Kape and only 3 for Osborne. But if we look at, we see that Osborne does have a 3% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. So he's shown a lot of power, averaging 1.9 knockdowns per 15 minutes, but against competition that wouldn't be considered top notch. While Manel Kape has got a 45% striking accuracy, he's actually absorbing more strikes than he lands, while Odie Osborne is landing 4.3 and only absorbing 3.04. So a little bit better on the ratio side. Kape has attempted 3.5 takedowns per fight, while Odie Osborne has only attempted 1 takedown in 3 fights, but he did get that takedown. Manel Kape's got good takedown defense. He's successfully defended 8 out of the 10 takedown attempts against him in 2 fights. So, not only have Manel Kape's opponents been active with the wrestling, but Manel's done a good job of stopping the takedowns, and he's only yielded 9.72% control time. So the 2 times he was taken down, it looks like he was probably controlled for less than 1.5 minutes on both of them. While we see Odie Osborne, while he has 1 takedown and he's yielded 2, Odie only has 1.27% control time, but he's yielded 25% control time. Now, the problem with that is that there's only 8 minutes of cage time here for Odie. So he's been controlled for 2 minutes of it. But, it looks like there could potentially be a path to victory for Kopp here if he goes to the wrestling, because Odie Osborne has been controlled in the small amount of cage time that we have seen. And we talked about the strength of schedule. Manel Kopp has obviously fought the tougher competition. So big step up in competition here for Odie Osborne. So if I go to my notes and I just kind of highlight the advantages of each fighter, I got Kopp being 2 years younger. He's got more experience, 50 more minutes of cage time, 1 more year as a pro, 8 more pro fights. Fantastic finisher, finished 14 out of 15 pro wins, 60% by sub, 33% by knockout. He's the more active wrestler is Kopp. Attempts 3.5 takedowns per fight. And Odie Osborne has been out-controlled 25% to 1% thus far. So if Manel chooses to wrestle, he might be able to win rounds with control time and grappling. He's successfully defended 8 out of 10 takedown attempts thus far in the UFC. He's yielded less than 10% control time against, and that's against guys like Pantoja and the other guys. So you're talking about really good competition here. With Nicolau and Pantoja, both really good wrestlers. And they've still, between those two guys, only been able to control Manel Kopp less than 10% of the cage time. And he's fought the way better competition as Kopp. While the Osborne advantages are in the measurables, he's 2 inches taller, got a 5-inch reach advantage. He's also got a great finish rate, 88% as a pro. He lands more strikes than he absorbs, albeit against lesser competition, while Kopp absorbs more than he lands. And we're talking about a 3% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, averaging 1.9 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So great power in a small sample size for Osborne. And he's the more accurate striker, 54% accuracy for Osborne, 45% for Kopp. So, yeah, I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it here, that this could potentially be another good violent spot, but I don't think it would have to be pretty good plus money for me to be interested by it. But what are you looking at on this fight?
Yeah, that was something really stuck out to me, was going to be the violent side of things. You have Kopp, 93% finish rate, and that's at a 21 fight sample as well. So he's finishing his fights when he wins. And then Odie Osborne, same thing, 88% finish rate, and both guys have been finished 4 times combined. Both of those coming by sub for each guy. And you take a look at the line here for the fight doesn't go, and it's plus money, which kind of surprised me. We have fight doesn't go decision sitting at plus 110, which maybe the under's plus 125, plus 130. At that point, I'm very, very interested. But yeah, I think Odie Osborne is going to be one of the most, if not the most popular dog play of the week. I think everybody's counting out Manel Kopp. You take a look at who he's been losing to. These guys are legit. I mean, Pantoja, he's legit. Mateus Nicolau is legit. I mean, he's fighting some really good guys. Odie Osborne, he's looking good, but he's looking good against Jerome Rivera. So I mean, you can't get a bigger step up in competition than that. I'm going to sit back and wait. I actually have some interest in Kopp. I know, he's low volume, all that good stuff, but he's a very, very good fighter. And I think that the line's going to close up quite a bit. It looks like it's closing up already. We have Manel Kopp opening up minus 200, already minus 185. We have Odie Osborne opening up plus 170, already plus 160. So, yeah, I think this line's going to close up quite a bit. I'm thinking violence. And if that line comes down a lot, I might be taking a shot on Kopp. I bet against him in his first 2 fights, but I might be taking a look at potentially betting him here depending on where the line goes, Weezy.
Yeah, some of the guys in the chat are bringing up really good points. Odie Osborne has looked good. Manel Kopp, has been a little bit, he just hasn't shown a lot of urgency, in my opinion. I kind of felt like he could have won both of those fights against Pantoja and Nicolau. And certainly the Nicolau fight was very close. It could have went either way.
Yeah, they were close fights.
Pardon me?
Yeah, they were close fights.
Yeah, both of them were very close fights. And, and I really think that people are forgetting about Kopp's willingness to wrestle here. You're talking about, these were fights against Mateus Nicolau and Alexandre Pantoja, and he's averaging 3.5 takedown attempts per fight. Most people aren't trying to take those dudes down. They're really slick on the ground. So, yeah, Odie Osborne is very slick on the ground. And, man, that guillotine he caught Kelleher up in was beautiful. But Kopp's slick, too, So, this is going to be a good fight. Yeah, The violence bet could be a very good one here because both of these guys are prolific finishers. And, I think the line is a little bit wide where it stands right now. I wouldn't lay that kind of juice on a guy like Kopp who hasn't shown the kind of urgency you need. I mean, if you're going to lay that kind of juice on a guy like Kopp, you better see some urgency. So, I haven't seen enough of it from him to lay it at this price. But if the line comes in some more, then it gets a little bit interesting. But yeah, the violence bet is kind of sticking out here for me. As we have, like I mentioned, out of 9 combined losses, almost half of them have come inside the distance. So, but they're 90% finish rates when they win. So this is great. This is going to be a good fight. Can't wait for this one. Going to be a really good flyweight battle.
Dude, yeah, I'm really, really excited for it as well. So we shall move. Jimmy the Drunk says, what's Kopp's record without shoes? Come on, Jimmy. All right, so we'll move on. We will move on to the next fight here. We have an interesting fight. Karolina Kovachevich going against Jessica Penne. We have Karolina Kovachevich, who is 35 years old, 5'3", 64-inch reach, going against Jessica Penne, who is 38 years old, 5'5", 67-inch reach. So Penne is going to have a 2-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage, and she's going to be 3 years older, which really does stick out because she is a 38-year-old strawweight. So as far as their last couple of fights, Karolina Kovachevich, she is 1-4 in her last 5 fights, had a split decision win over Felice Herrig, had a knockout loss to Jessica Andrade, a decision loss to Michelle Watterson, Grasso, and Yan Jinan. As far as Jessica Penne, it says 2-3 in her last 5 fights, but I really think she's 1-4. I really thought she lost to Lupita Godinez in her last fight. She won it by decision, but going back and watching it, and especially watching it live, I really thought Lupe won. I'm assuming a lot of people are with me there as well. And prior to that, lost to Daniel Taylor. And big thing to mention, that Daniel Taylor fight was in 2017. 2017, she came back from like a 3-year layoff and gets a win over Lupe Godinez. And prior to that, she got knocked out by Andrade, got knocked out by JJ, and won a split decision over Amanda Marcos. So both fighters are way past their prime. Both fighters have been looking awful. Uncle Weezy, what do you have for us here?
What I have for you is 1-800-GAMBLER, my friends. This is a 1-800-GAMBLER fight. And I just don't want you to take my word for it. Let's just talk about all the reasons that it's a 1-800-GAMBLER fight. We got a 35-year-old strawweight facing off against a 38-year-old strawweight. Jessica Penne has fought once in the last 5 years. Karolina Kovachevich, I'm not exactly sure when the Yan Xiaonan fight was, but it's at least 2 years ago, I think.
I think it was like a year and a half ago, something like that.
Year and a half? Okay. So, yeah, we're not, we're talking about in the last, year and a half, each one of these ladies has fought once. And for Penne, it's been once in 5 years. So, but we do have, some measurable advantages here. Penne, 2 inches in height, 3 inches in reach. The experience numbers are very similar. Kovachevich just has a longer average fight time, but really they've both got 18 professional fights. Penny's been doing this about 5 years longer than Karolina, and she's 3 years older, so that makes sense. But in terms of their pro experience, we see that Penne, 18 professional fights, 5 of them being in the UFC. And then for Kovachevich, 11 of her 18 professional fights have been at the UFC level. And we see Kovachevich about 80 more minutes of UFC cage time as well. Kovachevich, not a finisher, only a 25% finish rate over her career, while Penne, actually a 69% finish rate in her 13 wins. So that's pretty good, and she's been finished in 60% of her losses. So 3 out of 5 losses for Penne coming inside the distance. For Kovachevich, it's 2 out of 6. So neither one of these girls has been a finisher in the UFC. 5 pro wins for Kovachevich, none of them finished inside the distance. 2 pro wins, or 2 UFC wins for Penne, none of them finished inside the distance. And the 3 losses, 2 of them coming inside the distance for Penne, 2 of them coming inside the distance. So, this is probably a pretty safe fight goes to decision bet here. If we look at the striking numbers, we're not seeing anything particularly impressive. Kovachevich way more on the volume for sure. She's averaging 13.34 significant strikes attempted per minute, while for Penne it's only 8.05. So Kovachevich is going to be by far the busier striker, while it looks like Penne if we can expect a performance similar to the Godinez fight, she's going to be looking to grapple here, use her length, try to take Kovacevich's back, and Kovachevich is going to be the one with the better striking, and just is probably going to want to keep the fight on the feet, where she's had the most success. Kovachevich only 8 takedown attempts in 11 fights, so she wants the fight standing. While for Penne, in her 5 fights, we got 34 takedown attempts. So very clear striker versus grappler matchup here. Penne averaging, 7 takedown attempts per fight, while Kovachevich, less than 1. Kovachevich, good takedown defense. She's used to seeing opponents that are going to wrestle. So she's got 11 fights, and she's had 49 takedown attempts against her. So she's got 75% takedown defense. She's being averaged, taken down 1.2 times per 15 minutes. And Penne has had a terrible takedown percentage. She's only gotten 6 of the 34 that she's attempted. So only 17.65% takedown accuracy there. She's outcontrolled her opponents 21% to 13%, while Kovachevich has been outcontrolled 8% to 19%. So, I think it's pretty clear to see Penny's going to probably try to grapple, probably try to get some control time, a couple of takedowns, while Kovachevich is going to try to keep it on the feet at boxing range, throw more volume, land more punches, win it that way. If we look at the strength of schedule, we do see that according to my metric, Kovachevich has the better overall competition at a 1.4 ratio compared to 1.17 for Penne. We got better wins at a 1.11 ratio for Kovachevich, while it's only 0.67 for Penne and her wins, and the losses have been slightly better for Kovachevich. So I'd give Kovachevich the slight edge on the strength of schedule. So to break it down, Kovachevich, 3 years younger, 60 more minutes of cage time, throws way more volume, 13.34 per minute, as opposed to 8.05 per minute for Penne. She's the more accurate striker, although it's only 38% to 35%. Better defensively, she's 56% striking defense compared to only 46 for Penne. Penne has horrible striking ratios that can be exploited. So Penny's only landing 2.84 significant strikes a minute, but she's absorbing 6.09. So Penny's literally getting hit twice as much as she's hitting her opponents. Kovachevich has good takedown defense, at 75%, and she's seen a lot of takedown attempts. She's successfully defended 37 to 49 against. She's fought the slightly tougher strength of schedule, and she's training with Joanna Jędrzejczyk right now in Poland. So that's a really good 115-pound training partner, somebody that beat the shit out of Penne back in the day too. So that's a good thing in the advantages. If we're looking at Penne, she's 2 inches taller, has a 3-inch reach advantage, so she's going to try to use that reach to try to get inside and start to grapple, wrap her up. She's got a 69% finish rate, very good for the strawweight division. She's active with takedown attempts, 34 takedown attempts in 5 fights, and since that's going to kind of be her path to victory here, she's going to have to be very active with the grappling here. And she's out-controlling her opponents 21% to 13%. Not overly dominant, but Kovachevich is getting out-controlled at a 19% to 8% clip. So Penne could potentially win rounds with grappling and control time. But really, to sum it all up, neither one of these girls has been active. They're both kind of on the downside of their careers. This is a 1-800-GAMBLER fight. Anybody that bets this fight is going to have their Uncle Weezy calling the people at 1-800-GAMBLER, sending the orderlies over. So I know you're not going to bet on this fight, Brady, right?
Dude, I'm very tempted in Karolina Kovachevich. You mentioned a lot of great points. What stuck out to me is going to be the takedown defense. It is sitting at 75%. I went back and watched that Waterson fight, and I forget who was announcing, but they said that, prior to her getting taken down twice in that Waterson fight, they said that she at the time had the best takedown defense in the division. And if Penne's not able to get this fight down to the mat, I think she's going to really, really struggle. You brought up the volume. Karolina does average 5.27 significant strikes per minute. She does absorb a ton, but she's of a 56% striking defense. As far as Jessica Penne, she only lands 2.4. That's like half, with a 33% accuracy, absorbing 4.3 for a negative 2.05 a negative 2.05, Uncle Weezy, significant strike differential, and a 48% striking defense. You mentioned the terrible takedown accuracy of 23%, factoring in with the 75% takedown defense of Karolina. You talked about her training with JJ as well. Uncle Weezy, you might need to call away on her gambler on me because I am pretty tempted. And we'll take a look at the line here. We have Karolina opening up minus 180, actually. She's now down to minus 123. And Jessica Penne opening up plus 155, and she is now at plus 103. I see Karolina is minus 115 on FanDuel, minus 125 on DraftKings, and minus 123 on BetOnline. So as far as the fight goes to decision, minus 335. So probably not much value on that. But yeah, Uncle Weezy, you might have to call the orderlies because I am very tempted on Karolina here.
You know what's actually could be just a little bit interesting, right? Is the fight doesn't go to decision. What is that, like plus 250 here?
Plus 245, yep.
Yeah, so okay, so if we say like around plus 250 would be maybe like a 29% implied probability. But if we add up Kovacevich's 6 losses and Penny's 5 losses, that's 11 losses. We got 5 of those have come inside the distance. So each, even though neither one of these girls is what we would call a prolific finisher, and none of them has even finished a fight in the UFC, they have been finished about half the time. So maybe there's a little bit of value when the fight doesn't go to decision here. But, the thing with Kovachevich that bothers me is, she's 0-4 in her last 4 fights against really good fighters. Her last win was a split decision against Felice Herrig. Dude, it's hard for me to get to either of these girls, but when we did break down the numbers, I mean, yeah, the statistical advantages are definitely there for KK here. And, I can see maybe me not calling the orderlies on you here if you do get to a bet, but boy, I don't know. I don't think I'm getting to a bet on this one, dude. I just can't do it, man. I can't do it. I can't.
Oh, I don't know if I am either or not, but it is sticking out to me, as ugly as it is. 38-year-old strawweight and Jessica Penne, both fighters 1-4 in their last 5 fights. Yes, she did beat Lupita Godinez, but we all know she lost that fight. So yeah, we'll see what happens. There probably are better spots on the card, to be honest. So we'll see what happens, but I'm tempted. I'll say that. I have not bet it yet, but I am tempted. I will say that. So we'll move on to another fight here. And I will take the 1-800-GAMBLER off, and I will bring on the violence ticker here. And we have Alonzo Menefield going against Ed Herman. We have Alonzo Menefield, who is 33 years old, going against Ed Herman, who is 40 years old. Menefield, 6 foot, 76-inch reach. Herman is but 1 inch taller at 6'1", and also is going to have a 1 inch reach advantage as well. Taking a look at the last couple fights, Ed Herman lost to CB Dalloway by decision. He lost to Sean Vellante by decision. Had a knockout win over Patrick Cummings. That was a really exciting fight for as long as it lasted. Had a decision win over the worst fighter in UFC history in Khadis Ibragimov, and then submitted Mike Rodriguez in a very frustrating fight for probably a lot of people. I did not parlay Mike Rodriguez personally, but I know a lot of people that did, and Mike Rodriguez literally won that fight with a body shot. The ref said it was a groin shot, and Ed Herman was acting like it was a groin shot, and you can't hate on him too much. It was a veteran move, but man, he should have lost that fight 120%. As far as Menefield, he did knock out Vinicius Moreira by, I believe it was in the first round, and knocked out Paul Craig in the first round, lost to decision against Devin Clark, lost by knockout against Ovin Seprou, and just recently submitted Fabio Chiron. So we have Menefield, who is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Ed Herman is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. I guess the big thing that sticks out to me is going to be the 40-year-old age for Ed Herman as well. 40 years old. Definitely getting up there for sure. He's been in the game for such a long time. I'm sure you'll touch on that, Weezy. But as far as this fight goes, what do you have for us?
Dude, yeah, I'm fired up for this fight, dude. I cashed a ticket on short fuse Herman against Mike Rodriguez, and that was the first time in my gambling career that I actually took a shower right after cashing a ticket because, boy, oh boy, was that ugly. My God, was that ugly. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about an absolute gift. I know I had short fuse in my cash lineup as an underdog play, and for DraftKings, and then I actually cashed that ticket. So, yeah, man, this is a good one, dude. Short Fuse is 40 years old. Menefield, no spring chicken at 33, but definitely a lot less experience in the game here. We got 41 professional fights for Short Fuse, while it's only 12 for Alonzo Menefield. 343 minutes in the professional cage for my man Short Fuse, while it's 56 for Menefield. So while we could call it a 300-minute experience advantage for Short Fuse, we could also say there's a lot less tread on the tires here with Alonzo Menefield. A 17, almost at this point, an 18-year professional mixed martial arts career for Ed Herman, while it's just under 6 years for Alonzo Menefield. Way more UFC experience, 25 UFC fights for Short Fuse Herman, while only 7 for Menefield. We got almost 200 more minutes in the UFC cage for Short Fuse. Both of these guys are fantastic finishers. They always have exciting fights. In Alonzo Menefield's 10 professional wins, he's got 10 finishes, 8 by knockout, 2 by submission. Short Fuse Herman, 26 professional wins, 54% by submission, 27% by knockout. Added up, that's an 81% win rate. That's 21 out of 26 professional wins coming inside the distance for Short Fuse Herman. Alonzo Menefield has been finished once in his 2 losses by knockout, and that was to Ovin St. Preux, while we got Short Fuse Herman has been finished in 64% of his losses. So that would be 9 out of 14 of his losses have come inside the distance. So added up, 16 losses, 10 of them being inside the distance for these guys. So over, like about a 62% finish rate in their losses, and like an 85% finish rate in their wins. So definitely this is something we could see some violence here, man. Alonzo Menefield has just got terrifying power and strength. He's landing only 3.13 out of 6.66 strikes, 47% accuracy, showing 0.85% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. That's about 0.4 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Short Fuse, about 50% striking accuracy, 0.53 knockdowns per total significant strikes landed for 0.26 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Both of these guys have been knocked down quite a bit, or not quite a bit, but at about 0.7% for both of them. Striking defense around 44% for both of them. Both of these guys absorbing just a little bit more than they're taking in. Neither one of these guys volume monsters. So, we see that Short Fuse has attempted 70 takedowns in his 25 UFC fights, and he's gotten 34 of them. So that's, over a very, very large sample size, that's really impressive. An almost 50% takedown rate. 2.24 takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.12 submission attempts per 15 minutes, and a 31% control time. So what's interesting about Short Fuse is that about 62% of his UFC career has taken place in control time positions, while for Menefield, it's about 43. So I think it's clear that Short Fuse is going to be a little more comfortable in the grappling exchanges here. He was submitting guys back, when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. What was it, season 3 or something like that for this dude? He's been around forever. He's going to be the better grappler here. He's the more experienced grappler, and he's fought the tougher brand of competition without a doubt over his career. We see the ratio is 1.12 for Short Fuse, 1 for Menefield. The average record of a Short Fuse opponent, 5.92 and 5.28, while for Menefield, it's 3.57, 3.57. So Menefield's fighting 500 fighters with about 7 total fights. The wins are a little bit better for Short Fuse. The losses are a little bit better for Short Fuse. But, unfortunately, Ed Herman's 40 years old, and he's gotten to that age where as, a middleweight or a light heavyweight, you're going to be considered to be pretty much over the hill. But, Menefield isn't exactly in his 20s anymore either. He's had a long professional career prior to being a mixed martial artist. I think he played football and was pretty damn good. So, yeah, he's, this is a good one, man. But this is what I would call a striker versus grappler matchup. I don't think Menefield wants to be on the ground with Short Fuse, and I don't think Short Fuse wants to be standing up with Menefield. This is one that I really kind of see being a striker versus grappler. But one thing that really kind of I found to be really encouraging is that thus far in his UFC career, he's successfully defended 16 of 19 takedown attempts against Alonzo Menefield, 84% takedown defense, and he's out-controlled his opponents 32% to 11%. So it might be difficult for Short Fuse to get to the wrestling, to get to the ground game, and if he doesn't, it might just be a matter of time before Menefield knocks this guy out. So let me just give you my quick notes here. The Menefield advantages: 7 years younger, way less tread on the tires, 100% finish rate, and a 0.85% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. So he's showing some great power. He's successfully defended 16 of 19 takedown attempts against for 84% takedown defense, and he's almost tripling his opponents in control time at 32.55% for to 11% against. The Short Fuse advantages are obviously that he is way more experienced. He's got 500 more minutes of cage time. He's got 12 more years of experience, 18 more UFC level fights, 190 more minutes in the UFC cage, an 81% finish rate as a pro, and 54% of those coming by sub, 14 victories by sub, 7 victories by knockout. Short Fuse is the far better grappler, 70 takedown attempts in 25 fights, almost 50% takedown accuracy, 2.24 takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.12 sub attempts per 15 minutes, and 31% control time. 62% of Herman's fights take place in control time positions, while for Menefield it's 44%. And 5 of Herman's 13 UFC wins are by sub, 4 are by knockout, and he's fought the more experienced, tougher competition over his career. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Alonzo Menefield here. Don't know if I'll get to the money line. I do want to take a look at the line here. We have Alonzo Menefield, who did open up as a minus 140. That's interesting. He's currently minus 240. I see him on minus 215 on FanDuel as well. The only problem with Alonzo Menefield is I don't really like how low volume he is. I don't like the gas tank. He does have 100% finish rate. All of those wins coming in the first round besides one. I believe he did have a finish early in the second round, but if he's going to get the finish, it's going to be early, right? So for me, I'm kind of looking at it as like a violence opportunity. Instead of laying like the minus 200 on Alonzo Menefield, maybe take the under 1.5, maybe take the fight doesn't start round 3, because it kind of does cover both sides. Because like you mentioned, Ed Herman, he's very dangerous himself. And although I don't really see Ed Herman getting it down to the mat because of how good Menefield's takedown defense is, if Herman can crack as well, Herman hits pretty hard. I mean, he was able to knock out Patrick Cummings couple fights ago. In that fight, Herman got hurt like 3 or 4 times, ultimately landed a nice knee that hurt Cummings and put him out. But yeah, he's dangerous himself. So I'm kind of leaning towards the under 1.5. I got to pick Alonzo Menefield. Seeing Ed Herman's striking defense sitting at like 43% is definitely not a good look. You do not want to be hittable against Alonzo Menefield. And this guy hits like an absolute truck. He's going to be much younger, 3 years younger. Ed Herman's 40 years old. He's been in the game for so long. And I'm just not impressed. I mean, you take a look at his last couple of fights, right? Like Mike Rodriguez, a fight that he lost, a body kick, put him down, got knocked down twice in that fight. He literally lost that fight, but the ref bailed him out. Prior to that, beat the worst UFC fighter in history in Khadis Ibragimov. Prior to that, win against Patrick Cummings in a fight that, he got hurt a couple times in that fight. A split decision loss to Jean Vellante, lost to CB Dollaway as well. Like, I'm just not impressed. And in Menefield, not overly high on the guy, but he has a couple things. He has the youth. He has explosiveness. He's very athletic, and he's very, very powerful. And I think there's a very good chance that Menefield does knock him out in that first round. So for me, I'm kind of taking a look at the under 1.5. I'm taking a look at the fight does not start round 3. I'm taking a look at Menefield wins in round 1 as well. And I think all of those are definitely in play there. So we'll take a look at the fight doesn't go to decision line. It is minus 285, and for a very good reason. And the fight goes to decision is plus 205. But yeah, for me, I'm kind of waiting for that under 1.5. I'm hoping it's plus money, but we'll definitely see, Uncle Weezy.
Yeah, that fight doesn't go to decision line. It's so juiced. There's no value there. But yeah, maybe there'll be some value in that under 1.5, where you can get an alternate, fight doesn't start round 3. Those look like good spots to me. But yeah, man, we just got to remember, Short Fuse, I mean, he lost that fight to Rodriguez. Sure. I mean, that fight should have been over. But even after he was hurt, it just took for, and he was on the bottom. He locked up that Kimura from the bottom. The guy's always dangerous on the ground. So Menefield better mind his P's and Q's if he goes to the ground with this dude. But if he doesn't and he keeps it standing, man, he should land a big shot at some point and take this guy out.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking for sure. All right, we do have 154 in here. If you all can hit the like, that'd be much, much appreciated. Let's get those likes up. Thank you all for tuning in on a Sunday, as always, every week, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We are breaking down UFC 265. I made an announcement earlier in the video. If you guys have not heard about it yet, me, Uncle Weezy, Z from Z's MMA, and Luke from Sparring with Reality will be going live on Tuesday, every Tuesday, starting this week, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, doing a new DFS show. I think you guys will really, really like it. 4 great guys on the panel. Cannot wait to break it down from a DFS perspective and give our picks for the card as well. So tune in every Sunday here, and also every Tuesday. We're going to be bringing some very, very good content, and also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio so you don't miss out on all of it, including other sports as well. Lots of great guys here on Pub Sports Radio, and yeah, really looking forward to that Tuesday show for sure. Can't wait for it. All right, next we have an interesting fight. We have Bobby Green going against Raphael Fizzy. We have Bobby Green, who is 34 years old, 5'10", 71-inch reach. Raphael Fizzy, he is 28 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach. We'll take a look at the last couple of fights. Bobby Green is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Francisco Trinaldo, a decision win over Clay Guida, a decision win over Elena Venata, a decision win over Alan Patrick, and a decision loss to Thiago Moises in a fight that I really thought he won. He outlanded Moises like 2-1, was able to take him down multiple times as well, but they gave the decision to Moises. As far as Raphael Fizzy, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did make his UFC debut, I believe, against Magomed Mustafayev. It was like a spinning kick to the head, knocked him out clean. After that, he beat Alex White by decision. After that, beat Mark Diakese by decision, and then knocked out Renato Moicano in his last fight. So very good fight here. You know, you have the veteran and Bobby Green going against Raphael Fizzy. You have somebody that is young, 28 years old, and somebody that has been looking, you know, absolutely phenomenal to say the least. I have a feeling that Raphael Fizzy is going to be probably everybody's favorite parlay piece this week, Uncle Weezy.
Yeah, man. This is going to be such a damn good fight. I mean, if you don't get excited for Fisayev's fights at this point, it's time to check your pulse. This guy's really on the way up. Everybody's really excited about him, and for very good reason. So I'm just going to get right into my notes here, and then we can talk about this fight because it's one of my favorites on the card. Let's talk about the Green advantages here. Green is 2 inches taller. He's got a huge experience advantage in terms of mixed martial arts. He's got 29 pro fights. He's got 11 more UFC fights. He's got 360 more minutes of pro cage time and 7.5 more years as a pro than Fisayev. So huge experience advantage here for Bobby Green. He throws a ton of volume, 10.12 significant strikes attempted per minute over his UFC career. He's got excellent striking defense. We know how hard Bobby Green is to hit. He moves very well. He's got a 63.25% striking defense. He's landing 5.2 significant strikes per minute, but he only absorbs 3.4 for a 1.8 significant strike difference on the plus side for Bobby Green. He's only been knocked down 3 times in his UFC career in 684 significant strikes absorbed. So he's fought a lot of tough fighters, and he's really not getting hurt a whole ton. He's an active and efficient wrestler. He's got 46 takedown attempts in 15 UFC fights. He's got almost a 44% accuracy, and he's landing about 1.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he's out-controlling his opponents, even though his opponents have shot more takedowns on him. So his opponents have shot 64 takedowns against Green. Green has shot 46 takedowns, but yet, despite the fact that his opponents have shot almost 20 more takedowns than Green, Green is out-controlling his opponents at an 18% to 11% clip. So he's very efficient on the wrestling side. And then he's also fought the better brand of competition, according to my metric. Better overall, better wins, better losses than Fisayev. Now, for Fisayev, he's 6 years younger. He's coming into his prime. He's got a 78% finish rate as a pro, 67% by knockout, 11% by sub. Obviously, Fisayev is an elite striker, a Muay Thai master, a striking coach at one of the best Muay Thai gyms in the entire world, Tiger Muay Thai. 57% striking accuracy, a 0.5 significant strike differential, 0.6 knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, 0.6% that is. He's got 100% takedown defense in his UFC career. So for an elite striker, The literal best thing that you can have as an elite striker in the MMA space is to have 100% takedown defense, because it means that if you're elite, then your opponent probably isn't an elite striker, which means you have an advantage when you're standing up. And if your opponent is going to have a 0% chance to take you down, that's what spells wins. That's why the line is so wide on Fizzy. That's why everybody thinks he's going to win this fight. It's because he's got 100% takedown defense, and his striking is just so good. 83% of his fights, Fiziev thus far, have taken place at striking range where Fiziev is deadly. He's out controlling his opponents 3-1 at a 12% clip to a 4% clip. So, yeah, there's a lot to like about Fiziev here, but we have to keep in mind that Bobby Green is extremely experienced. He's got a huge experience advantage, 11 more UFC fights. He's fighting guys like Clay Guida, Francisco Trinaldo, Lando Venata, Thiago Moises, Michael Johnson. Bobby Green has been through it, man. He's fought a lot of studs. While, Fiziev comes in against Magomed Mustafayev, he got knocked out. He beat Alex White. He got a win over Diakese, and then a really impressive win by knockout over Renato Moicano. So, yeah, this is going to be a great fight, man. I'm really interested to hear what you've seen in the tape so far.
Yeah, what I'll say is, you take a look at this line. I just think it's crazy, man. I think it's very, very disrespectful. Listen to this: Raphael Fizzy opened up -145. He is currently -330. -330, and Bobby Green is +255. Man, I think that's so off. I went back and watched the tape on some of Fiziev's fights against Alex White. He looks really, really good in that first and second round, but he actually gets outlanded by White in that third round. Two of the judges still give the fight to Fiziev. I believe he mixed in a takedown as well, but one judge did give that third round to White there, which I definitely don't like to see. And then there was a fight after that against Mark Diakese where he wins the first 2 rounds, and then he gets outstruck in the third round by Mark Diakese, and all 3 of the judges give that third round to Mark Diakese there. So I do see that he does slow down quite a bit as the fight goes on, or I don't know if he's cruising in that third round because you think you're already up 2 rounds, but do you want somebody at -330 who's just going to kind of cruise, especially with the judges nowadays, right? Like, you think that Fiziev is up 2 rounds. What if he does cruise in that third, gets outlanded in that third like he did against Alex White? It could be a very sketchy, close decision. And, obviously I think that Fiziev is the better striker. I love that he has a 100% takedown defense, but somebody brought up in the chat, 100% takedown defense against who? Alex White, Mark Diakese. Bobby Green, I believe he has a wrestling background, tons of takedowns on his record as well. And I feel like Bobby Green can make this competitive. I think he can make it competitive. Obviously, you favor Fiziev with the striking, but if Fiziev's not able to knock out Bobby Green, which, by the way, only one person's been able to do that in the UFC, I think it's going to be a very close fight. So I can see a lot of people taking the value shot on Bobby Green here. For me personally, I'm just going to pass. I'm going to stay off of this fight. I'm not going to be putting Fiziev in my parlays. I think this fight can definitely be a lot more competitive than the -330. Like, I just think that's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think it's disrespectful. Bobby Green, veteran of the sport, Bobby Green, you take a look at his fights, they're all very close. They're all very, very close. And just seeing Fiziev drop a third round to Alex White, seeing Fiziev drop a third round to Mark Diakese, it's just not something I want to see. So I'll take Fiziev for the win, but I think that line is off and by a very significant margin, to be honest. I can see a lot of people, taking the value shot on Green, it being a very close fight. But I will side with Fiziev to be landing the harder shots. The shots that you're going to hear, there's going to be fans in the crowd. You're still going to be able to hear, how hard this guy hits. He mixes it up very well to the legs, to the body, to the head, and he hits like an absolute truck. It's just Bobby Green. It's a very good chin. I think he can take those shots, but I'm going to pass here, Uncle Weezy. As far as the fight goes to decision, is -160. The fight doesn't go to decision is +120. I kind of like that fight goes, or maybe the over. Bobby Green, I think his last 8 or 9 fights have went to decision, so might be a potential look there. But for me, Weezy, I'm gonna pass. I think the line's a little bit off here.
Yeah, the one thing I did not look at was the line in this fight, and Aiden in the chat brought it up, and that's disrespectful to Bobby Green. He should not, Fiziev should not be -330 against Bobby Green, dude. No way. You're talking about a guy in green who's got 29 more pro fights, 350 more minutes in the cage. If we just look at some of the names on this dude's resume, Bobby Green has been fighting in the UFC forever, and he has fought a ton of studs. You know, and Fisayev did get knocked. I mean, they said it's a lot of recency bias in the line, and they're right. I mean, you're talking about wins over, James Krause, Josh Thompson, Eric Koch, Clay Guida, Lando Venata, Alan Patrick, and he's losing to guys like Barboza and Poirier and Rashid Magomedov 5-1, Drakkar Klose 5-2, lost to Francisco Trinaldo 16-7. I mean, if you add up the records of the 6 guys who beat Bobby Green, they are combined 67-27 in the UFC. So yeah, that's the value is on Green because the judges are awful. So maybe they just get it wrong, like they have if this fight does go to decision. And we know that guys like Poirier is the only guy to finish him. I mean, that's the only guy to finish. Yeah. The guy that fights Fisayev is fighting. Why? I'm not even high. What the hell is wrong? Bobby Green's only loss by finish in the UFC, and these 6 losses to guys with a combined record of 67-27 is to Dustin Poirier. So yeah, man, that's a little bit disrespectful. I think that line is too wide. I kind of like the fight going to decision here. Yeah. But yeah, that line is wide. I would probably bet Green before I would bet Fisayev, even though I think Fisayev probably wins this fight 2/3 of the time at least,
Yeah, I think the line's quite up. We'll see where the line goes for sure, but yeah, I feel like Green could be a popular underdog bet as far as like a pump plate goes, and I think Fizzyev's going to be in a ton of parlays, so we'll see what happens. I think the fight's slightly, mislined, but we'll see. I'll still pick Fiziev to get it done, landing the harder shots, the better shots as well. So getting to the next fight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Uncle Weezy, this is the start to the main card, right? Torres versus Hill. Okay, so
yeah, it is. Sorry, I was away from the mute button.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So we have Tecia Torres going against Angela Hill. We have Torres, who is 31 years old, 5'1", 60-inch reach, going against Angela Hill, 36 years old, 5'6", 64-inch reach. Some important things to note is this is going to be a rematch. I believe that the fight was like in 2014 or 2015, somewhere around there. Torres is going to be 5 years younger. Angela Hill is going to be a 36-year-old strawweight with a 2-inch height advantage and also a 4-inch reach advantage as well. As far as the strength of schedule goes in the last couple of fights, we have Torres, who is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. But take a look at some of the fighters she's facing. Lost to JJ by decision, lost to Zhang Wei Li by decision, lost to Marina Rodriguez by decision, and then she beats Brianna Van Buren by decision and knocks out Sam Hughes with a weird, I don't know if it was like a cut stoppage. It wasn't even near her eye, it looked like, but weird stoppage there. But nonetheless, a TKO victory in the first round for Torres there. As far as Angela Hill, 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Hannah Cifers knockout. Luma Luke beam a decision win, which is a very close fight. A split decision loss to Claudia Gadelha in a fight I thought she won. A split decision loss in against Michelle Watterson in a fight that I thought she won. And then a win over Ashley Utter. What sticks out to me, Weezy, is going to be, man, look at the level of competition difference here. JJ, Zhang Wei Li, Marina Rodriguez, and then you go over to Angela Hill, Hannah Cifers, Luma Luke Bumi, Claudia Gadelha, Ashley Yoder. So for me, this is a rematch. It is closely lined. I'm very interested to see your thoughts on this one, Weezy. But yeah, let's see what you got.
Yeah, like you said, what's weird here, what blew me away was, you think Torres is the more experienced mixed martial artist here. She's got an 8-year career. Hill's got a 7-year career, but Angela Hill's 36 years old, and Torres is only 31. Did you know that Angela Hill is 5 years older than Tecia Torres? I didn't know that. That was just kind of weird for me. I didn't expect to see that. Hill's got 5 more pro fights. She's got probably about 40 more minutes in the cage, but 1 year less as a pro. And in the UFC, Angela Hill, 17 fights. Tecia Torres only 13. But Torres got the better record at 8-5 compared to 8-9 for Hill. If we look at the finish stats, Angela Hill's finished 38% of her pro wins by knockout. 25% of her pro wins or in UFC wins are by knockout. While for Torres, has only got a 16% finish rate overall. So yeah, that's not very good, man. Definitely not. We don't. These girls aren't finishers, especially in the UFC. In the UFC, we got 16 wins and I think 4 of them have come inside the distance, so about 25% if you add them up. And Angela Hill has been submitted in 22% of her UFC losses. So 2 out of 9 losses coming inside the distance for Hill, while for Torres, she's never been finished in the UFC. If we look at the striking stats here, we see that Hill's the busier striker. Both these ladies land more than they absorb. Torres lands 4.3, absorbs 3.37. Hill lands 5.66, absorbs 5. Both of these girls got good over 60% striking defense, 62% for Torres, 64% for Hill, while Hill's a little more accurate at 50% compared to 48% for Torres. So Hill's more accurate. She throws more. She shows a little bit more power on the feet and a little bit better in the striking defense as well. So I would give Hill, because of that 4-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage, those nice little striking numbers, that gives Hill a nice striking advantage here. While for Torres, she's the much more willing wrestler. 53 takedown attempts in 13 fights. She's only gotten 8 of them, though. So really a very low accuracy at 15%. So Torres only getting 0.68 takedowns per 15 minutes, barely attempting any submissions. She's out-controlling her opponents 22% to 18%. So about 40% of Torres's fights are taking place in control time positions. Hill is being out-controlled 17% to 11%. So about 28% of her fights taking place in control time positions. So Torres will probably be the more willing grappler, while Hill will try to keep it standing, keep it at distance, win the fight that way. If we look at the strength of schedule metric, I'm showing better wins and losses for Torres and the better overall competition at a 1.38 ratio overall compared to 1.03 for Hill. So Torres is fighting the tougher brand of competition here too. I see it as a striker versus grappler. Torres 5 years younger. Hill going to be the better striker. Torres going to try to keep it really close, probably along the cage, maybe dominate in the clinch. Well, Hill's going to probably stay on her bike, circle, try to keep the fight at distance, and pick her apart from the outside. Which way do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm more so on the Torres side here. So going back to their first fight, I know it was like 5-6 years ago, but I think it's going to play out like kind of the same. So in that fight, Torres was able to mix in 2 takedowns, and she was able to control Angela Hill for 9 minutes and 4 seconds of that fight. And that's kind of what Angela Hill has struggled with throughout her career. That's getting taken down and getting controlled. Against Ashley Yoder in the last fight, she was taken down 2 times. Ashley Yoder, the same fighter that looked like shit last night against Jinyu Frey and went like 0 for 8 on takedowns against an atomweight, and Frey got 2 takedowns against Angela Hill. And fun fact, Angela Hill has been taken down at least 1 time in her last 4 fights. So she got taken down twice against Yoder, taken down once against Michelle Watterson, taken down once against Claudia Gadelha, and taken down by Luma Lukebumi as well. And honestly, I think it's only going to take 1 takedown from Torres to, ride out the round. So if Torres can, keep the striking competitive, push Hill against the cage, clinch up, grind her out a little bit. If she can take her down, I think that's going to pretty much seal the round. I don't think Angela Hill has a great get-up game whatsoever. Her takedown defense has improved, leaps and bounds since their first fight, but still, I think it's going to be a very close, competitive fight for the most part. I just think the takedown difference of Torres is going to, be enough just to win minutes of the fight and get on top and get some control time there. But yeah, the level of competition is also another thing that's big with me here. I mean, she just beat Ashley Yoder, who looked atrocious last night. She lost to Michelle Watterson. I personally thought she won, but maybe I had a little bit of recency bias. I did pick her in that fight. I thought she beat Claudia Gadelha. And then she beat Luma Lukebumi. She did get outstruck in that fight 53-48. And then prior to that, she beat Hannah Cyphers. She beat Hannah Cyphers. She beat Ariana Karnalowski. She beat Jody Escabel. She beat Marina Moroz. Good win. And then she beat Ashley Yoder once again. So just kind of taking a look through the career of Angela Hill, just not that impressed whatsoever with her wins. Or her losses, really. And then you take a look at Tecia Torres. She loses to Marina Rodriguez. This is her losses, 5 losses. Marina Rodriguez, Zhang Wei Li, JJ, Jessica Andrade, and Rose Namajunas. Like, that's pretty crazy to me. So I think the level of competition definitely goes in the Torres favor. I think it will be a close fight. Early look, I thought I might have a dog play on Hill, but I do think the takedowns will be a difference here. So we'll take a look at the odds, and they are close for a very good reason. We have Torres opening up as a plus 100 dog, currently minus 132. You have Angela Hill opening up as a minus 120 slight favorite, currently plus 112. So the line completely flipped. I agree with it. I will not be betting at Torres. I will not be betting Torres here, but I will pick her to win. The fight goes to decision is minus 305. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 225. So for me, Weezy, I'm going to sit back and enjoy this one.
That'll make two of us, man. No value in that fight. Doesn't go to decision line. And yeah, you're almost kind of flipping a coin here. You know, you brought up the that she has been taken down in those last four fights. Was Angela Hill, but let me just in those last four fights, she's been taken down 5 times, but that was in 29 attempts. So you know, it's still, you know, I mean, still 83% takedown defense over those last 4 fights that she has been taken down in. The 2 losses were both by split decision. And I think Hill might have beat Waterson. I had her winning that fight. And the Gadelha fight was damn close, too. So, yeah, she knocked down Gadelha, landed 90 strikes, and Gadelha landed 84 and didn't have a knockdown and only got 1 takedown. And she outlanded Waterson 131 to 128. And Waterson was 1 of 18 on takedown attempts. So, you know, Angela Hill could be 6-0 in her last 6 fights, dude. Yep. So, you know, yeah, man, this is a tough one to call, man. You know, I'm going to stay away from it unless I see something in the tape that really gets me going one way or another. There's no value in the fight. Doesn't go to the decision line. It's just far too juiced. Maybe throw it in a Hail Mary parlay. But, yeah, this is a tough one, man. I think I'm going to stay away from this one and just look forward to the Yadong Kenney fight that's coming after it.
Yep, 100% with you there. I'm not going to have any action there. So we do have 4 fights left, starting with Song Yadong going against Casey Kenney. Very, very good fight here. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a very fun fight. 2 guys that I really like. I'm really high on both these guys. We have Song Yadong, who is 23 years old, 5'8", 67-inch reach, going against Casey Kenney, who is 30 years old, 5'7", 68-inch reach. So Yadong's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, and he's going to be 7 years younger. Like Song Yadong, this guy is so young. You'll talk about it in a little bit, but he had to start his career probably 17 or 18 years old. Coming into the UFC at 18, 19 years old. It's just crazy how young this guy is and the level of competition he's been fighting. I mean, take a look at this. He beat Vince Morales by decision, knocked out Alejandro Perez. Had a draw against Cody Stamann, a decision win over Marlon Vera, and decision loss against Kyler Phillips. Like, those guys are legit. Kyler Phillips, Vera, Stamann, 3 very, very good fights there. As far as Casey Kenney, he did lose to Merab Dvalishvili. He did get taken down 12 times in that fight. Had a submission win over Luis Smoka. Had a decision win over Alatang Hali. Had a decision win over Nathaniel Wood and a decision loss to Dominic Cruz. Yeah, for me, right off the bat, the level of competition looks like to be in favor of Song Yadong here. I mean, Cody Stamann, one of the top guys in the division, Marlon Vera, Kyler Phillips, somebody that he lost his last fight, but I think this guy has a ton of upside himself compared to Casey Kenney, who Dominic Cruz, very good fight there, but he did lose it. Nathaniel Wood in a fight that I believe he got outstruck and was still able to win. It was a very, very, very close fight, but he did it. He got the takedowns to get the win there. Hali Alatang, who I don't know if he's cut yet, but probably will be soon, to be honest. And then Luis Smolka, and of course, Merab Dvalishvili. So yeah, both guys fighting decent competition for sure. Song Yadong is 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights, and Casey Kenney is 3-2 in his last 5 fights as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fireworks, Uncle Weezy.
I can't wait for this one, man. Striker versus grappler is what I'm calling this one. Dude, one of the great things about Yadong, you mentioned it, the kid's only 23 years old, right? He's got 23 professional fights at the age of 23. And check this shit out. His pro career length, 8 years, 2 months. Do the math. This guy was fucking fighting professionally at the age of 15. 15! What were you doing when you were 15, dude?
I don't know.
Nothing productive on my end. I could tell you that right now, man. This is crazy, dude. Yadong is so young. He's getting better. He's training a team alpha male. And Casey Kenney, dude, the murderer's row of dudes that this guy has lost to after coming into the UFC, man. I mean, the guy's lost to Dominic Cruz and Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, this is going to be a great fight, man. So even though Yadong is 7 years younger than Kenney, He's got 3 more fights. Kenney's got 40 more minutes in the cage. Kenney's got 9 UFC fights. Yadong's got 7. So we see Kenney's got a little bit more of his pro career happening at the UFC level, 45% of his career, while for Song Yadong, it's about 30% of his career that's happened at the UFC level. Both of these guys with fantastic records, 5-1-1 for Yadong, 6-3 for Casey Kenney. In terms of finishing numbers, 57% finish rate overall for Song Yadong, but 3 of his 5 wins coming inside the distance in the UFC. While for Casey Kenney, only 1 of his 6 wins comes inside the distance, and he's only got a 44% finish rate as a pro. And then if you add up the 8 losses for these guys, only 1 of them have come inside the distance. So looking at those finish line numbers, I'm already looking at potentially a fight goes to decision, despite the fact that Yadong is a very powerful striker. If we look at the striking stats here, we've got pretty identical striking accuracy at 42% for both of these guys. Yadong throwing 10.33 strikes. Kenney throws 11.21, so very similar in the output. Yadong 1 less strike per minute, but he's also got some power. So we're seeing the power out of Yadong at almost 1% of his total significant strikes landed have resulted in a knockdown. That's 0.6 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Neither one of these guys has been knocked down thus far. They're both landing more strikes than they absorb, and they both show pretty damn good striking defense. 57% for Yadong, 59% for Kenney. And then we've got what's interesting in the grappling numbers, why I'm calling this a striker versus grappler matchup, is that in Song Yadong's 7 fights, he's only attempted 4 takedowns. So he's not really going to the wrestling, less than 1 takedown attempt per fight. But he has gotten 3 of the 4 that he's gotten. So he's actually right there with his opponents at 15.9% control time for and 15.46% control time against. And that's impressive because Yadong has only attempted 4 takedowns, and his opponents have attempted 23 against him. So for every takedown Yadong attempts, his opponents are attempting 6. But despite the fact that his opponents have been much more active in the offensive wrestling, Song Yadong is actually still slightly out controlling his opponents. So he's been very efficient with his takedowns, takedown defense, and grappling. While for Kenney, we're seeing 23 takedown attempts in 9 fights. He's gotten 9 of them for almost a 40% clip, not bad, averaging over 1 takedown attempt per 15 minutes. He's controlling his opponents 11% of the time, but he's been controlled 16.66% of the time. Losses to Dvalishvili and Cruz probably being a big part of that. He's had 59 takedown attempts against in 9 fights. So actually, neither one of these guys has shown great takedown defense. 56% for Yadong, 59% for Kenney. So Kenney will probably be the one that's more likely to go for the offensive wrestling. As we see, he's averaging about 2.5 takedown attempts per fight, while for Yadong, it's only 0.5. But Yadong's get-up game has been really good. In 76 minutes of cage time, he's only been controlled for 10 minutes, and that's in 10 takedown attempts. So it's less than a minute per control per takedown attempt, and we don't even know how much of that is in cage control time or clinch control time. So Yadong, even though he's got not great takedown defense, his get-up game is good, and nobody has submitted him. So pretty good there. And if we look at the strength of schedule, we see a ratio advantage for Casey Kenney, 2.13 compared to 1.68 for Yadong. And we've got slightly more experienced competition for Yadong. The wins are better for Kenney at 2 ratio to 1.6 for Yadong, and the losses are slightly better for Yadong at a 3 ratio instead of 2.5 for Kenney. So both these guys are fighting good competition, but Casey Kenney overall is fighting a little bit better win-loss competition, while Yadong's competition has been just a little bit more experienced. You know, if you think Song can keep this on the feet and land a big power shot, he'll probably win. And if Kenney goes to his offensive wrestling game and this thing becomes a grappling contest, I could see him winning. I definitely see this fight going to decision. I really like the fight goes to decision here. I'd be interested to know what that line is looking like. But I don't know which way you're leaning on this one here, but I am having a hard time picking a side, but I do like the fight goes to decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is probably the hardest fight to call in the card because he brought up a ton of good points. I think that the power advantage obviously going to go to Song Yadong. He's going to be landing the harder shots for sure. But Casey Kenney, has that wrestling, and we've seen Song Yadong taken down multiple times. A 56% takedown defense does not look good on paper, but he has a very, very, very good get-up game. So although Casey Kenney, might mix in takedowns here or there, I don't think he's going to do much with them. And it's a tough fight to call because Casey Kenney is going to bring the volume. Song Yadong is going to bring the power. And you can definitely see it. It reflects in the line that this is a very, very close fight. You're right. It's going to go to decision. And who knows what the hell fight the judges are going to be watching. So, man, it's about a pick 'em here on some books. We have -115 for Casey Kenney, -105 for Song Yadong. And I agree with the line. I think it should be very, very close. I think it does go the distance. The fight goes to decision is -170. I don't hate that. So I'm curious to see what the over is going to be as well. That might be a potential look, but I'm with you. I think this fight goes to decision, outside of Song Yadong clipping Kenney, which I don't believe Kenny's ever been knocked out. So, as far as picking a winner, man, I don't know. I mean, Casey Kenney has that wrestling upside. I think he can mix in takedowns. Song Yadong, the harder shots. Flip a coin. I'll go Casey Kenney. I think this guy's making a ton of improvements in his striking. You take a look at his fight career like a couple of years ago and look at him now. The striking has improved just leaps and bounds. And you're going to see the same thing with Song Yadong. He's going to improve leaps and bounds. He's at a very good camp as well. He's very, very young. This is such a well-matched fight that I'm actually struggling to really pick a winner. I'll side with Casey Kenney for the wrestling upside. I think he does mix in takedowns here or there, and I do think the striking is going to be competitive. So I'll take Casey Kenney. You will not see me betting on this one. If anything, I'm going to be looking at the over 2.5 or the fight goes to decision.
Yeah, man. Oh, God, I'm not touching the money line on this one, dude, until I do some really good research. But Sloppy Seconds called it. Song's nickname should be Thong. Then he could be called Thong Song Yadong. How baller would that be, man? Just think about that for a minute. These are the kind of gold that we get in our audience here at Stat Diggers. You just can't ask for a better crew to be hanging out with us, breaking down these fights. I'm just so privileged to be a part of all this, hanging out with you guys. This is great.
Yeah, he brings up a good point here. How can you pick against an alpha male fighter with corrupt judges? Hey, good point there. But yeah, it's going to decision, and who knows what the judges are watching. But I think, take the fight goes to decision. I mean, you don't have to really worry about what the judges are watching as long as it goes to decision. So that's going to be something I'm looking at there. I can't wait for the lines to be released for the over-unders as well. So we will get to the next fight here. We have a very intriguing fight. This is probably the fight I'm looking most forward to. I'm a huge Vicente Luque fan. He's one of my favorite fighters. I love the guy's style. The guy he's a freaking robot. I mean, he has a crazy chin, one of the best chins you'll ever see. This guy has never been knocked out, and he never will be knocked out. This guy takes a ton of punishment, a ton of damage for our entertainment. I love this guy. I love Vicente Luque. And you have Michael Chiesa, who's been looking phenomenal at this new weight class at 170. He's been looking very good. He's really big for the weight class. I have no clue how he made 155, but here he is on a little bit of a win streak here. So we have Michael Chiesa, is 33 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach, going against Vicente Luque, 29 years old, 5'11", a 75-inch reach. So Chiesa is going to be a little bit taller as well. As far as the last couple of fights, Michael Chiesa is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, lost by submission to Anthony Pettis. And that was at 155. That was his last fight, I believe, at 155. Then he moved up to 170, and you see he is undefeated at 170 here, beating Carlos Condit by submission, beating Diego Sanchez, beating Raphael dos Anjos, and also beating Neil Magny. So 4-1 in his last 5 fights, 4-0 at 170. As far as Vicente Luque, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights as well, beating Mike Perry by split decision, a very, very close fight, an absolute war. After that, he lost to Stephen Thompson by decision. After that, he knocked out Nico Price in what was also a war. After that, he knocked out Randy Brown. And after that, he did submit Tyron Woodley after hurting him bad in that first round. So Uncle Weezy, I'm really looking forward to this fight. This fight is the definition of striker versus grappler, and I can't wait to see which way you're leaning here.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, this fight could take place 100 times, and all 100, it would take place the exact same way. Not necessarily with who's going to win or lose, but this fight is going to be Michael Chiesa trying to grapple fuck Vicente Luque, and this fight is going to be Vicente Luque trying not to get grapple fucked by Chiesa. Chiesa's fucking huge. how the hell did he ever make 155 pounds? I want someone to tell me, because the last fight that I saw against Dos Anjos, he looked like he was 4 weight classes bigger than Dos Anjos. He is absolutely huge. I have no idea how he made 155 because he looks huge at 170. Chiesa's striking is bad, and Vicente Luque's striking is fantastic. Chiesa is going to just try to get on Luque's back. That's how he wins fights. He's going to try to do the same thing he did to Magny, to Dos Anjos, to Sanchez, to Condit. Chiesa's just going to try to get on your back. So he's 4 years older than Luque. He's 2 inches taller than Luque, and it's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup. We've got 6 more fights for Luque as a pro. We've got 100 more minutes in the cage for Luque as a pro, and we've got about almost a year more in the game as a pro for Chiesa. So the experience numbers just lean Luque a little bit. He's been busier, he's been more active, and even though he's done this a little bit less time, he's fought more. And both of these guys, 31 combined fights in the UFC, a 24-7 combined record for these two guys in the UFC. About 150 minutes in cage time for both of them. Average fight time just below 10 minutes for both of them. A 61% finish rate for Michael Chiesa, all of it by sub. Dude's never going to knock anybody out. And if Michael Chiesa knocked out Vicente Luque, I'm done. I'm done watching. It just means that the game has passed Uncle Weezy by, and it's time for me to hang up my prognosticator hat, because that shit ain't going to happen, dude. Chiesa's not knocking anybody out. His striking is awful. Some of the worst in the welterweight division right now. But it doesn't have to be good, because the guy's an incredibly smart fighter. He knows who he is. He knows he's a grappler, and he sells out for the grappling. And Luque is just an absolute killer on the feet. The dude has got an iron chin. Nobody's ever going to knock him out. And he hits like a truck. And he just puts a pace on people that they just can't handle. The guy's got a heart as big as a truck as well. And I can't wait for this fight, man. This is the classic striker versus grappler. We see that Luque's been submitted in 2 out of his 7 losses. So that's interesting, because that's going to be the path to victory here for Chiesa, is to either win by decision or by submission. And for Luque, it's going to be to win by decision or by knockout. 100% of Chiesa's losses have come inside the distance. Also very interesting. Leads me to believe that a violence bet might be the best way to go here. We can see that Chiesa is not a willing striker in the numbers. He lands only 1.89 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs only 1.71. And then if we go right to the grappling statistics, we see a 48.47% control time for Chiesa in 15 fights and 17.53% control time against. We add up those numbers, and you got about 2/3 of Chiesa's fights take place in control time positions. And then we look at Luque, 14% for, 18% against. That's about, 32%. So while 2/3 of Luque's fights take place, 2/3 of Chiesa's fights are taking place in control time positions, only 1/3 of Luque's fights are taking place in control time positions. So that's the clash of styles there. Luque's going to want to keep this standing. Chiesa's going to want to keep this to be a grappling match. If we look at the strength of schedule, let's look at the takedown defense here first, because Vicente Luque is showing about 66% takedown defense. He's successfully defended 25 of 38 takedown attempts against, but that's 17.5% control time. If we look at Vicente Luque, 136 minutes in the cage, so that would be about 24 minutes of control time on 13 takedowns attempts against. So Luque can be controlled on the ground. That's over a minute per takedown. So that's there is a path there for Chiesa to potentially win this fight by decision if he does get the takedowns, if he clings to his back, if he keeps this fight on the cage. If we look at the strength of schedule, the ratio is close. It's 1.87 for Luque, 1.67 for Chiesa. But you look at Chiesa, the total fights, 18.67 compared to only 8 for Luque. So the average record of a Chiesa opponent, 11.67 and 7. So he's fighting not only guys with really good records, but guys with 18 average UFC fights. So he's fighting really experienced competition here. While for Luque, he's fighting much less experienced competition at an average record of 5.25 and 2.81. Both of these guys got great wins, but Chiesa's beating a more experienced competition. And Luque's losses have really only come to the best at an average record of 7 and 2.3 for a ratio of 3. While Chiesa, it's a 1.29 ratio and an average record of 11.25 and 8.75. Classic striker versus grappler matchup. I could see this being a Chiesa submission. I could see this being a Luque knockout. I could see either of these guys winning by decision because it's only a 3-round fight. This is a great fight, man. I can't wait to watch this, but I really don't have a lean here. I'm going to need to hear what the line is, and I'm going to need to hear your take on this, man, to kind of get a better idea.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited for this fight for sure, and you brought up a ton of good points. One thing that I did want to point out I thought was very interesting, take a look at Michael Chiesa's last couple fights here. So against Neil Magny, in a fight that went 25 minutes, Neil Magny landed 12 significant strikes in 25 minutes. Against Rafael dos Anjos, in 15 minutes, dos Anjos landed 14 significant strikes. Diego Sanchez landed 7 significant strikes in 15 minutes. Carlos Condit landed 5 significant strikes in a fight that went to the second round. Pettis landed 9 in a fight that went to the second round. So you could just see that, man, Chiesa does not give people opportunities to really hit him. So for me, like, I think Luque is probably going to have to finish this fight. I think Chiesa is going to be able to win minutes. You take a look at Luque and look through his career, they don't really match him up against grapplers. I mean, Randy Brown took him down once. Nico Price took him down once. Derek Krantz took him down once, which by the way, Derek Krantz actually took Luque's back. Ultimately ended up getting knocked out, but still took Luque's back and controlled him for a couple minutes there. Besides that, like, he was taken down 3 times by Leon Edwards. Edwards was able to get some control time as well. Prior to that, nothing really. Michael Graves took him down 7 times back in 2015 on The Ultimate Fighter, but we're not really seeing Luque fight many guys that are going to want to take him down. And, why would you match somebody up against Luque that's going to take him down? You want somebody that's going to stand and bang like a Nico Price. That's the fight you want to make because it's going to be exciting for the fans. So I think it's a solid matchup for Chiesa, really. I mean, I think he's going to have a ton of opportunities to control Luque. I think he's going to be able to take him down. Luque can be taken down, like you mentioned, 65% takedown defense. He can be controlled as well, like you mentioned. And I think as long as Michael Chiesa doesn't either A, get knocked out, which, like I mentioned, not many opportunities to do so, or B, get submitted, which it could happen. Chiesa has been submitted multiple times. Luque, very solid on the mat himself. But outside of that, I do think Chiesa is going to be winning minutes of this fight. And outside of a Luque finish, I do think Chiesa gets it done. It's just, I don't know if he finishes Luque. Like you mentioned, Luque has been submitted twice, but both of those were prior to the UFC. Luque, very, very tough. He's not going to, if he's not going to get knocked out, obviously, by Chiesa. So I'm kind of struggling with the fight goes or fight doesn't go. We have the fight goes to decision at -105. The fight doesn't go to decision at -135. And we have Luque as a -125 favorite, open up -160. And Chiesa open up as a +140 favorite and +105 currently. On FanDuel Sportsbook, Chiesa is +116. On BetMGM, Chiesa is +125. So for me, I'm kind of looking towards the underdog here, Weezy. I think there's a ton of value on the line. I think Chiesa will be winning this fight if he doesn't get knocked out or submitted. And like I said, I don't think he's going to give many opportunities to Luque to get that knockout. So I'm kind of thinking Luque needs a sub here to win or a finish at the very least.
Yeah, when you look at Luque's fights, you're right. He fights a lot of strikers. Woodley, Brown, Price twice, Stephen Thompson, Mike Perry, Brian Barberena, Jalen Turner, Chad Laprise, Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad. These are all strikers, and Chiesa just makes it dirty. Chiesa makes it really, really dirty, and it's going to be a very uncomfortable fight for Luque because Chiesa just sticks to his opponents. It's going to be who gets their way here. Is it going to be Chiesa trying to, really keeping it close, not allowing Luque to strike at distance, or is Luque going to be on his bike, keeping the distance and keeping this at striking range, man? It's really hard to say, dude. I can't wait for this fight. But yeah, I kind of like this plus money on Chiesa because he just sells out for what he does. And Luque hasn't seen a guy do that since Michael Graves back in 2015, and he lost that fight.
Exactly. So yeah, that's definitely a dog shot. I am very well interested in it. Like I said, I'm a huge Weezy.
Yeah. I just wanted to say too, this reminds me just a little bit of Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson a couple weeks ago, in that where we were saying like, oh, Thompson's just going to pick this dude apart on the feet. But then we were also talking about how nobody was trying to take Thompson down. And, if we would have known that Gilbert Burns was really going to commit to getting those takedowns against Thompson and that he was going to get them, it would have been an easy pick, to pick Burns. And I'm kind of seeing the same thing here. We haven't seen a lot of takedown attempts against Luque here in his last few fights. And that's not going to be the case. I mean, I'm looking 1, 2, 4, 0, 2, 2, 1, 0, 1 in like the last 9 fights. Those are the amount of takedown attempts that Luque has seen. And nobody's gotten more than 1 takedown against him since, let's see, it would have been 3 out of 12 takedowns for Leon Edwards, and then it was Michael Graves getting the 7 takedowns in the UFC debut. So, yeah, he's going to see a dirty fighter who's going to shoot a bunch of takedowns, and it's going to be a very difficult fight for Luque to keep this at striking distance where he's going to have the most success. So, yeah, I might be leaning Chiesa here, but I got to definitely do some more research.
Yep, for sure. I like it. So we will now get into the co-main event. Before we do so, if you guys can hit the like on the video, that'd be much, much appreciated. Also, want to remind you guys to tune in at Tuesday to the new DFS show. Cannot wait for that whatsoever. But first, we have a co-main event here that is, pretty solid. It was supposed to be Amanda Nunes going against Juliana Pena, which would have been an absolute murder. But we will get to watch this fight instead of José Aldo, 34 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach. Pedro Munhoz, 34 years old, 5'6", and a 65-inch reach as well. Some things to point out. Both guys are the same age. I know it may seem like José Aldo is a couple years older, but no. Both guys are the same age. They're 34 years old. Aldo is going to have a 1-inch height advantage and also a 5-inch reach advantage as well. Going back to the last couple of fights here, José Aldo did knock out Renato Moicano. He lost a decision to Alexander Volkanovski. He lost a split decision to Marlon Moraes. He lost by knockout against Piotr Jan, and then he beat Marlon Vera by decision in his very last fight. As far as Pedro Munhoz, knocked out Brian Caraway. He knocked out Cody Garbrandt. He lost by decision to Aljamain Sterling. He lost by decision to Frankie Edgar as well, and then he just beat Jimmy Rivera by decision. So yeah, very interesting fight here. A very close fight on paper, but which way are you looking, Weezy?
Man, this is going to be a good one, dude. Interesting stat here. These guys were born 2 days apart. Both born in September of 1986. José Aldo is 2 days older, or actually 2 days younger than Pedro Munhoz. Aldo's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here, and I think that's going to be important because this fight should probably be taking place almost exclusively at striking range. And Munhoz throws a lot of kicks, but so does Aldo, and that 5-inch reach advantage should be significant here. Even though these guys are the exact same age, we know that Aldo's more experienced, 36 pro fights compared to 25 for Munhoz. But what's also interesting is they have the exact same amount of cage time at 401 minutes. And Aldo's been doing this about 4 years longer, 16 years, 11 months, compared to 12 years and 4 months for Munhoz. 17 UFC fights for Aldo, 15 for Munhoz, about twice as much time in the UFC cage for Aldo because he's had so many championship fights, 5-round fights. While we're talking, so an average fight time over 15 minutes for José Aldo, while it's 10.27 minutes for Pedro. 62% finish rate as a pro for Aldo, 59% by knockout. So guy's definitely a knockout artist. While for Pedro Munhoz, he's got a real slick guillotine. So 42% of his overall wins have come by submission, 26% by knockout for a 68% finish rate overall. Very impressive. And shit, he could have got a finish against Rivera last time out with those incredible knockout or leg kicks. And José Aldo, in his 7 losses, he's been finished 71% of the time, 14% by sub, 57% by knockout, while Pedro Munhoz has never been finished. So, yeah, this is going to be a good one, man. We're talking about almost identical striking accuracies, almost identical knockdowns for total significant strikes landed. Munhoz just throws way more volume. We're talking 12.74 significant strikes attempted per minute to only 7.5 for Aldo. And he's landing 5.6 and absorbing 5.87 as Munhoz, while Aldo actually also absorbs more strikes than he lands, as he lands 3.3 and absorbs 4. Both these guys striking defense right around 59%. Aldo just been a tiny bit more chinny, but neither one of these guys is what you would call chinny by any stretch of the imagination. And then on the grappling side, Aldo only 22 takedown attempts in 17 fights. Munhoz 33 takedown attempts in 15 fights. 21% takedown accuracy for Munhoz, while for Aldo it's over 50%. So Aldo is going to be the more efficient wrestler here. Aldo gets about 12% control time and gives up about 12% control time, while Munhoz's fights take place in the center of the cage about 90% of the time. And that's the way I see this fight taking place. I see this taking place in the center of the cage and being a striking match, a kickboxing match between Munhoz and Aldo. I don't see this fight going to the ground. Neither one of these guys initiates a lot of takedowns. And if you look at how they've been, how their opponents have handled them, in Aldo's 17 UFC fights, he's had 74 takedowns shot against him, but he's got 89% takedown defense. So, the almost 90% takedown defense at the championship level for 17 fights for Jose Aldo. So you're not taking down Aldo. And then Pedro Munhoz has over 80% takedown defense in his own right, and his opponents are attempting 46 takedowns in 15 fights. So both these guys have such great takedown defense, and neither one of them are particularly active wrestlers that I'd be surprised if either one of these guys got a takedown. But if I thought one guy would get it, I'd say it'd be Aldo, just because he's been way more efficient, even though he hasn't attempted as many. In terms of strength of schedule, I mean, Jose Aldo's been fighting at the championship level, so we would expect him to have the better ratio to have fought the tougher competition. And of course, that's the case. 2.15 ratio for Aldo, a 1.8 for Munhoz, and about, 5 more total fights in an Aldo opponent than a Munhoz opponent. The wins are better for Aldo against tougher ratio opponents and more experienced opponents, and the losses are to better opponents for Jose Aldo as well. So definitely a strength of schedule advantage for Jose Aldo, a 5-inch reach advantage for Jose Aldo, a higher percentage of his career fighting at the championship level for Jose Aldo. Munhoz, a little bit more diverse of a finisher, while Aldo really only gets knockout finishes. Both of these guys tough to finish, but Munhoz never been finished, while Aldo has been finished in 5 out of his 7 losses. So yeah, this is going to be a kickboxing match. And I think whoever, brings the better kickboxing game plan is who's going to win this fight. Who do you see winning it?
Yeah, still got to do a little bit more tape on this one, but something that really stuck out is, how much volume that Pedro Munhoz lands. He averages 5.6 significant strikes per minute with a 43% accuracy. But what also really sticks out is going to be how much he absorbs. Like, this is crazy. He absorbs 5.87 significant strikes per minute, which is obviously a ton. So he is, very, very hittable. But he does throw a lot of volume. He really does. And, Jose Aldo's, much more volume, landing 3.45, absorbing 3.52. And you kind of take a look, through the past couple of fights of Jose Aldo, landing 44 significant strikes in a win against Marlon Vera, landing 83 in a fight that went 5 or 4.5 rounds against Petr Yan, landing 58 against Marlon Moraes in a fight that went 15 minutes, landing only 29 significant strikes against Alexander Volkanovski. Like, all this is really good competition, don't get me wrong, but man, really, really, really low volume here. And when you have Pedro Munhoz, he's going to be, doing more. He's going to be throwing a ton more. What I don't like is that Aldo's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Like you mentioned, this fight's going to play out primarily on the feet. Munhoz would probably like to get the fight down to the mat, but it's not going to happen. Aldo has a very, very good takedown defense, some of the best takedown defense you ever see. So I'm with you. I see it playing, standing on the feet, but it's tough, man. I mean, I think I might side with the dog here on Pedro Munhoz just because he's going to be throwing a lot more volume. He is younger in terms of fight years. Aldo has been fighting for a couple more years. So I think I'll go with the younger guy in fight years, the guy that's going to be throwing more volume here with Pedro Munhoz. But it's a close fight. It's a very close fight. And, the odds definitely do indicate that. So we have Aldo opening up as a minus 130 favorite. He is currently minus 130, and Pedro Munhoz is currently plus 110. So we have Aldo as a slight favorite. I think I will side with the dog. I don't think I will bet it, but we have the fight goes the distance at minus 180, and we have the fight doesn't go the distance at plus 140. I do not see José Aldo knocking out or submitting Pedro Munhoz. Like you said, he's never been finished. On the flip side, maybe Munhoz can put Aldo out, so I really don't want to touch the fight goes or the fight doesn't go. But if anything, for me, it's probably dog or pass. But I think I'm just going to sit back and watch this one, Weezy.
I am kind of feeling the same way. I wrote down Aldo Munhoz fight goes to decision. I don't see either one of these guys finishing the other. So, yeah, I could see this. That one could be a potential parlay piece for me. But, yeah, it's so hard to call. I mean, Aldo's fought the tougher competition. He's got the reach advantage. He's probably got the better kicks overall, better leg kicks, but Munhoz goes to the leg kicks way more. One of the guys mentioned it in here that Aldo has got really good leg kick defense, and that's true because Munhoz goes to that a ton. So, yeah, dude, this is a tough one, man. I don't know who I like here. I think this fight probably does go to decision, though, but I can't wait to get into this main event.
Heck yeah, me as well. So we will get into the main event. One thing I do want to mention is that me and Uncle Weezy will be we'll be recording tonight for the main event. We're going to do a deep dive on my channel. It'll be posted tomorrow morning. We're going to get very, very in-depth into Derrick Lewis going against Ciryl Gane. We'll kind of give you guys a condensed version here, but if you want to hear more about the matchup, check out my video on DFS by the numbers with Uncle Weezy. Always do appreciate you guys checking that out. It's always fun going 30 to 40 minutes, going deep into a matchup with Uncle Weezy there. So other thing I want to mention is that if you guys can leave a like, let's get those likes up. I'm not sure how many likes we're at. I will check very soon, but hopefully we can hit that 100 like mark. We hit it last week. Hopefully hit it this week again, but we have a very good main event here, an interesting main event for the interim heavyweight championship. For some reason, I'm not sure. I don't really want to get into it, but regardless, we have a solid fight here. We have a solid fight with Derrick Lewis, definitely a fan favorite, going against Ciryl Gane, who is a young in terms of heavyweight up and comer, somebody that's been on fire as of late, and I'm looking forward to the fight. I mean, it's a really big test for Ciryl Gane here. Derrick Lewis is somebody that maybe not the most skilled fighter in the world, but he has that one thing, and that one thing is power, and that has carried him throughout his career. But we do have Derrick Lewis, who is 36 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach, going against Ciryl Gane, who is 31 years old, 6'4", 81-inch reach. So Gane's going to be 5 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage as well. As far as their last couple fights, Ciryl Gane beat Dontel Mays by submission. He beat Tanner Boser by decision, knocked out Junior Dos Santos, beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik by decision, and beat Alexander Volkov recently by decision as well. As far as Derrick Lewis, knocked out by Junior Dos Santos, a split decision win over Blagoy Ivanov, a decision win over Ilir Latifi, a knockout win over Alexei Oleinik, and just recently a knockout win over Curtis Blades as well. So we have Lewis, who is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We have Ciryl Gane, who is obviously 5-0 in his last 5 fights here, and it's looking to be a pretty solid main event here.
Yeah, man. We've seen a lot of Gane lately, and we've seen pretty much the same kind of performances out of him where he just kind of dances around, picks people apart from the outside, and he's goddamn good at it. I mean, he looked good against Volkov. He looked good against Rozenstruik. He knocked out Dos Santos. He looked good against Boser, sub-Mays. Guy's on a fucking roll, man. Only 31 years old, only 9 professional mixed martial arts fights in less than 3 years in the game. I mean, how far this guy has come. He wins this fight, and only his 10th mixed martial arts fight. He's going to be an interim heavyweight champion here in the UFC if he wins this fight. So it's amazing to see how far Gane has come in such a short period of time. And then we got Derrick Lewis on the other end. That's the knockout king, dude. 12 wins by knockout in the heavyweight division. That is insane, man. That is so much power. And, I say this about Derrick Lewis a lot, and it's not a particularly popular opinion, but I think he's a really, really, really smart fighter. I think Derrick Lewis knows exactly who he is. He doesn't have any illusions of grandeur. He doesn't think that he's going to do things that he can't do. When somebody takes him down, he rests. He rests and he waits. He doesn't let people advance position, and then he'll just bench press somebody off of him when he feels like getting up. He saves his energy. He doesn't throw a lot of volume, but the volume that he does throw lands and knocks people out. He waits for his opportunity. He doesn't get out over his skis, and he sticks to the fucking game plan. And when you've got that kind of power and you've got the kind of strength that Derrick Lewis has, it's easy to wait for that one big shot. And when you make it into a 5-round fight instead of a 3-round fight, it makes him even more dangerous. You know, in the Abdul Rahimov fight, he was fucking getting dominated for the first 3 rounds, getting out-wrestled, and he got one takedown in the 4th round. He was on top for about 20 seconds, and that fight was over. You make one mistake against Derrick Lewis, one mistake in 25 minutes, and it doesn't matter how much you were dominating the fight up to that point, you lose. You wake up looking at the lights with a concussion in searing pain. Just ask Curtis Blades. Just ask Alexei Oleinik. You know, I mean, this guy has been knocking people out in the UFC, 12 UFC knockouts at the heavyweight division. So it's a very easy fight again. It could take place 100 times. It's gonna happen the same way every time. Gane's gonna dance and circle and pick him apart from the outside, and Derrick Lewis is just gonna walk forward slowly and wait for that one big shot to land. I don't think it will, but you'd be a dumbass if you had Gane straight here and you didn't hedge just a little bit by Derrick Lewis by knockout, because it's his only path to victory, and you might get plus 400 on it. So I am definitely leaning Gane. He's just way more athletic. He's way faster, and he, just like Lewis sticks to his game plan, Gane doesn't divert from his game plan either. I mean, he has no problem going in against a power puncher like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's just a smaller version of Derrick Lewis, and dancing for 5 rounds and picking him apart from the outside. He doesn't care if the fucking fans boo. I was one of the people booing during that fight. That fight sucked. But you know what? Rozenstruik didn't win a round. Not one. I mean, he didn't even come close to winning a round because Gane did exactly what he does best. Use that tremendous athleticism he has for a big man. Use that great footwork, the great distance striking. He hits you. You can't hit him. And as long as he sticks to the game plan and doesn't get too bold, I think he should easily outpoint Derrick Lewis here for 5 rounds. I mean, even if we just go back to the Curtis Blades fight, you know, when we were handicapping the Blades-Lewis fight, we said what was going to happen. You know, Blades was just going to take him down, lay on top of him, and beat the shit out of him until he probably knocked him out. But what happened is Blades actually fought at distance and picked apart Derrick Lewis from the outside because Derrick Lewis was just waiting for that first shot, and he was going to come in with that big uppercut. So if Curtis Blades can pick apart Derrick Lewis from distance, what the fuck do you think Ciryl Gane's going to do? You know, so yeah, I see Gane winning this fight pretty easily, outpointing him. I would pick him by decision. Maybe he gets a sub, but I doubt it. I wouldn't try to take down Derrick Lewis after what happened to Curtis Blades. So I would just outpoint him from the outside. I like Gane here by decision, but if I were to bet it, I would hedge just a little bit with Derrick Lewis by knockout because that's his path to victory. What are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Gane rolls here, but I also thought that about Curtis Blades as well. And, you know, a lot of people that fought Derrick Lewis because, man, I mean, you know, Derrick Lewis, he does a lot of things bad. I mean, he's very low volume. He has no takedown defense, you know, no ground game, solid get-up game. But he does a lot of things that I don't really like. But he has that one thing, that X factor, and that is that power. You mentioned it, 12 UFC knockouts. That is absolutely crazy. But what I like about Gane, especially considering this matchup, is he doesn't care if you think he's boring. I mean, a lot of people said that he's a boring fighter after the Rozenstruik fight, you know, probably after the Volkov fight as well. He doesn't care. He wants to win, and that's exactly what he does. He does not put himself in danger. He wants to, you know, stay on the outside. We will be back into, you know, the bigger cage as well, which I do think favors Gane. So I'm with you. I think Gane just, you know, easily outpoints him for 25 minutes. I don't know if he finishes Lewis because, again, he doesn't really put himself in those positions. He's more than content to just pick apart Lewis for 15 minutes or 25 minutes. The fans will be booing, and he really does not care because he's smart. He's a smart fighter. He wants to win. He doesn't really care about going in there and putting on a show for our fans, standing in the middle and banging with Derrick Lewis. He's going to go on the outside and just pick him apart fairly easy, in my opinion. You mentioned it. I think the takedowns could be a route for sure. Derrick Lewis has a very poor 54% takedown defense, and Gane has a pretty solid submission game, very solid wrestling game himself. So I think he could, but like you mentioned, will he want to try that after the Curtis Blades situation? I don't really know. So I can see a situation where he does go to the takedowns, he has success. I can also see where he just outpoints him for 25 minutes. And, I see the line for, Gane, and I get it. I get that he's minus 350. He probably wins this fight the majority of the time, but you can't count out Derrick Lewis ever. You can never, ever count this guy out. He can be losing every single second of the fight and just find that one shot. He will have 25 minutes to do so. But again, I don't think Gane will put himself into many bad spots for Derrick Lewis to land that hard shot. So I like Gane here. Am I going to bet the money line? Absolutely not. I think he does win the majority of the time, but do I want to bet against the power of Derrick Lewis? No. I will pick Gane, and I will pick him with confidence, but as far as the money line minus 350, I will not be parlaying Gane. I will not be playing him straight. The best line you can get is minus 310. I'm okay. I'm going to sit back and watch. Even the props, I'm not really interested in it because I can see it going both ways. I can see, Derrick Lewis knocking him out. I can see Gane potentially getting it down to the mat, getting a submission, ground and pound victory, maybe hurting Lewis at some point. Or I can see Gane just staying on the outside for 25 minutes, winning a very boring decision. People on Twitter are going to complain, and Gane's going to, be the interim champ. So, fight goes the distance is plus 155. Fight doesn't go the distance is minus 195. I know they have those props up there on, I think it's on FanDuel Sportsbook and some other books as well. It's like a 4-5 or decision for Gane. Maybe you'll get a little bit of a better price. I think if Gane does win, maybe it is later in the fight. So, but for me, as of now, and probably throughout the week, I don't think I'll have a bet on this fight. I'm probably going to sit back and watch, but I do think Gane does make it look pretty easily. But, Derrick Lewis, he's always live. Against anyone in the world, he is always live.
He's always live. And like I said, both of these guys are smart fighters in their own way. They both have different distinctive competencies, which they go to in order to win fights, but they're both damn smart. They both stick to the game plan, and they both try to get the fight into the direction of where they have the best chance of winning. So it's going to be a very interesting stylistic matchup in that regard. And I can't wait to see it because, it was the same thing in the Rosenstruik fight where you're like, yeah, he could be dancing around for 4.5 rounds. But we remember Rosenstruik getting that knockout against Overeem in the last 5 seconds of the 5th round, And we remember Derrick Lewis getting that knockout against Alexander Volkov in the last 30 seconds of the 3rd round of that fight. These are, Derrick Lewis is dangerous until the final bell. And it really doesn't matter what happened up until that point of the fight because the guy only needs to touch you once. And Gane's going to have to be very, very careful. And I don't think that this could be one of the most boring fights of all time. This could be an all-time shit show. Because you remember what Ngannou Lewis was.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't remember how bad that fight was. I was throwing shit at my own TV during that fight because I was telling everybody, wait till you see this fight, It's Francis Ngannou, Derrick Lewis. Somebody's going to get their fucking head punted into the upper deck. It's going to be like the shower scene in Scarface, I was telling all my friends, and then it just comes out it's the worst fucking fight of all time. You know why it was? Because both those guys were scared shitless of what was coming the other way. How could you not be scared of Ngannou's power? How could Ngannou not be scared of Lewis's power? Well, Gane is a very smart fighter who's going to be scared of Lewis's power, and he probably won't try to get near him. And Derrick Lewis will probably just stand in the middle of the cage and be saying, come here, son, come here. You got to get within striking range at some point. And it's going to be a battle of wills. I don't think either one of these guys is going to be making the first mistake. It could wind up being a very, very low output, very boring match. But still, at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of exciting because at any minute, a mistake could be made and the fight could end. And I'm hoping it does kind of inside the distance because I'd like to see somebody get a signature win here instead of it being like a boring decision.
Yeah, I feel you, but I'm kind of leaning towards the boring decision. But I'll be rooting for the Black Beast. Big fan of the guy. I'm sure he's a lot of people do like him. It'd be nice to see him win, and it'd be nice to see him get that rematch against Francis Ngannou. Hopefully, if it does happen again, the second time's better. I mean, it can't be worse, right? So, thank you guys so much for hanging out. We did it. Couple announcements before we head out of here. First of all, if you guys can leave a like, that'd be much appreciated. We did hit that 100 mark, so appreciate that, guys, a ton. It really does go a long way. So me, Uncle Weezy, Z's MMA, and Luke from Sparring with Reality will be going live Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Pub Sports Radio. Mark it down on your calendars. Please show up, show some support for the brand new show. I think you guys are going to love it. 4 very, very sharp guys on one panel, breaking down the slate from a DFS perspective, giving our picks and predictions as well. Me and Uncle Weezy will be going live, not live, but recording tonight, posting it tomorrow on my channel, doing a deep dive for this fight. Can't wait for that. It's always a good time chopping it up with Uncle Weezy. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. You can follow me, of course, on YouTube, DFS by the numbers. I'm going to be posting my full card breakdown and prediction video Tuesday morning. I have everything done for the most part. Have to get a little bit more tape done, but yeah, really looking forward to the card as a whole. Uncle Weezy, I'll let everybody know what you have going on and where they can find you as well.
Check me out on Twitter at MMA Weezy. Check me out on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. I do balls deep breakdowns, 30 to 40-minute breakdowns of usually 3 to 4 fights every week. I'm going to try to do at least 3 this week for this card. Hit me up on Twitter if you have a particular fight on this card you want me to do a balls deep breakdown on. I always take those into consideration, try to pick the best fights, but I also want to know what you guys want me to break down. Check me out on YouTube, check me out on Twitter, and then right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday night for Stat Diggers. Right here on Pub Sports Radio now every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, right? 7 o'clock Eastern?
Yes, sir. Yep.
For the DraftKings show. I can't wait to do the inaugural one on Tuesday, man. Looking really forward to it. Thank you, all you guys that have been spending your Sunday night with us here on Stat Diggers. Brady and I really appreciate it. Pub Sports Radio appreciates it. Thank you for all the financial support, for all the donors today. You guys really killed it with the likes, the comments, everything, man. We really enjoy providing this content for you on Sunday nights. We love it that you hang out with us.
Yes, sir. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, guys. Good luck for this card. I think it's a great card, at least compared to last week. I think the card's good. Great pay-per-view. We have a great main event and a pretty solid card overall. So looking forward to making some money. Looking forward to having a great August. So that's about it, guys. Good luck, and we will talk to you very soon. See you guys Tuesday here on Pub